What do you see in this image? It's a frame of a death animation jump scare, similar to the ones we encountered in the last video on Capture the Intelligence, TF2's most terrifying horror game where mercenaries were being trapped inside a TF2 server and being corrupted over an undisclosed amount of time. This image is one of the only things I've seen before going into the game's final ever update, but this doesn't look like a corrupted TF2 mercenary, or any kind of technology we saw in that game. It looks like a warped image of a unique, organic organism. If anything, it looks eerily similar to the profile picture of the creator of Capture the Intelligence, Nixliz, but with disheveled, contorted, sunken flesh, a dislocated jaw bearing jagged, sharp teeth, and a look of pure terror in his eyes. We had hypothesized that through Nixliz expressing himself through the art of this last game and his inspirations for it, that despite him saying that he didn't write a lot of specific lore for a lot of the characters, maybe this inadvertently made his own expressions and inspirations the lore behind the characters. Could it be that this has somehow become more than theory in this new update? Analog scanlines in the background and the blurry warping of tape could mean that the creator of the game may have found himself trapped inside it too. Was the game really fully an ARG after all? With the new final update to CTI with an entirely new campaign with New Game Plus, this video will cover the lore, secrets, Easter eggs, and explanations of all of our speculations on the story and entities from the last video looking at CTI. The 1.2 update brought entirely new monsters, new levels, secret levels, unlockables, achievements, and much more. And of course, we're getting the inside scoop again, with Nixliz coming in later to reveal the truth behind the lore. And he told me that a lot of what he said in the last episode's interview segment has completely changed. It's time for the finale. Well, judging by this video's length, there's a lot to explore. The length also meant that I had to spend a very long time making this, and that would not be possible without today's sponsor, who is giving you a chance to win 3 golden frying pans. Just one golden frying pan is worth over 7,000 US. You can enter the giveaway using a link in the description. The TF2 trading site that has the guaranteed cheapest prices overall. Manco.store, the #1 TF2, CSGO, Rust, and Dota 2 marketplace for the cheapest prices and highest seller returns. How can they have the cheapest TF2 keys on the market too? It's because they have the lowest profit commission out of all TF2 sites at only 5%. They also do free daily giveaways, and you can cash out using all the main services with 24/7 support. Click the link in the description or scan this QR code and it will massively help me out. So if you haven't finished playing the original CTI release, or seen my last video covering the lore and story of it, a link is in the description, so you can be up to date with all the details for this video to make sense. I also recommend using this video as a guide for when you get stuck, and of course to find out more about all the secrets and extra content afterwards. But here's a quick recap for those who have seen it already. We can remind ourselves of the speculations from last time going into the new update, which hopefully has a new ending cutscene. After a spy who's stuck in a corrupted version of a TF2 server finally fights his way through CTF Turbine after stealing a Capture the Flag intelligence briefcase away from a demented monster that resembles the Heavy, he manages to escape through a turbine spawn door. But after walking through, he still can't leave the server. Instead, he finds himself on GM Construct from Gary's mod. And to make things weirder, he has to complete a mission similar to Left 4 Dead 2, another Source game on it, collecting gas cans to fuel a jeep to escape that map. But every time he escapes a location, often from a Valve Source game or from a Places from My Dreams location, he has to outsmart another corrupted monstrous form of a Valve character to continue, each bearing their own unique powers. Like a soldier entity that gets faster and faster the longer he chases you, or an enlarged demo man head, rooted to the floor, that wails at the top of his lungs when he sees you, alerting all of the other corrupted monsters nearby. After navigating through a number of these uniquely treacherous maps, he comes across a server room, and lurking within is the Engineer, the most powerful entity yet, who can levitate and teleport when you interfere with nearby electrical hardware. Spy shuts down 8 active servers in the room that are seemingly hosting this corrupted version of TF2, but as he escapes the server room, he comes across the intelligence from the first turbine area once again. The engineer reaches out to stop the spy from touching it, but when he does anyway, Spy is transported out of the server and back into his bedroom. He is finally free from the corrupted TF2 server. But before he can fully relax, he hears a knock at his real-life door. All of the normal mercenaries there for his birthday. Everyone except Engineer. The cutscene then shows the corrupted in-game engineer still on the server, suggesting that there are grey lines from where this server ends and where reality begins. Was the engineer friend trying to trap Spy inside of his own creation? Why? More information was revealed in the second ending after completing Tower Mode, which contains many more terrifying enemies that weren't in the original campaign. The cutscene shows Spy arriving at the engineer's place of work, a mysterious intelligence agency in the real world, where he rejects a gift from the spy. It's later made apparent that Engineer hates his job there. In the lore, he was excited to work at this company and had been working towards it for a while. But upon experiencing the day-to-day of the job, the veil was lifted, and the things he initially loved about the company had been industrialized and commercialized. Maybe this is why he turned the spy away, because he's sick of the reality of what his previous dreams were, and sees the spy as being too naive or representing the misalignment of what he thought was good about life, not being a reality. After work, he gets home and re-watches his induction tape to the workplace before snapping in anger halfway through. That night, he returns to the workplace with a gun, infiltrating a server room where he sees the in-server intelligence briefcase in real life. A heavy, also working at the company, catches Engineer in the act, but it was too late. The Engineer quickly twisted and contorted into his corrupted in-game entity counterpart and kills the Heavy. This led to a complete electricity outage and explosion, destroying the building, and the final cutscene ends. My original main theory was that Engineer was somehow getting power from the intelligence, possibly by trapping other people's sentience in the server, corrupting them. I initially thought that the mercenary monsters were actually trying to communicate with you through voice lines, such as the snipers yelling, "Hold still." A hint not to move around them too much or they'll one-hit you with a charged sniper round. We can also see that the entities might be vessels for some kind of other power, as in the cutscenes you can see other body parts reaching out of their mouth in the Jumpscare kill cams. The interview revealed that for the Minge, the merging of flesh and robotics was just a conscious design choice rather than lore, but Nixlers didn't comment on the other monsters. And remember, this game came out before Server Blight, so it's likely not just a parasitic entity like Server Blight or The Thing. As we interviewed the creator in the last video, he revealed that a lot of the story was an expression of how he used to play Garry's Mod with a friend, creating contorted versions of the TF2 mercenaries for fun to try and make each other laugh. In one Gmod session with his friend, Nixlers' creation was the soldier cannibalizing the scout, referencing Saturn eating his son, which looks eerily similar to the soldier Jumpscare model. He then explained that the ending cutscene was about acknowledging that the type of media the cutscenes are referencing, the old stop-motion Gmod animations and the styles of more original creepypasta horror, don't exist anymore, and that the two friends, Engineer and Spy, had fallen out through time passing and not being able to enjoy the things they once did anymore. This was either growing up in the Spy's case, or what you love and what you're passionate about being commercialized in the Engineer's case. Whether this was a parallel into one of Nixlers' friendships is unknown. He specified he just wanted to express a feeling of spite and bitterness for not being able to enjoy the things you used to as a child through the theme of lost childhood, where certain phenomena were just a product of their own time. and another theme of spite for your passions being taken by corporations and then being flanderized. That's quite a mix, but that's all we have going into the new update. So from that story recap and lore analysis with the creator, who did say that his interpretation since that last interview had changed, here are the speculations of what we could be dealing with going forward. Some things to keep in mind for the rest of the video. Number 1, all Valve games could be linked together through this corrupted server, similarly to the Interloper horror series, except only on this one server, potentially programmed by the engineer. And was the engineer friend trying to trap Spy inside of his own creation, and if so, why? Number 2, the creator said that a lot of the monsters themselves didn't have too much lore, but he also messaged me about the new CTI update saying that a lot of what he said in the previous interview has changed. Number 3, the lore could be an unintentional manifestation of the creator's psyche through artistic expression. Not only did he say he has memories of contorting models were found on GM Construct with his friend, but he said he'd always spam engineer voice lines
Well, don't that beat all?
in game, which the CTI corrupted engineer always says himself. Could this mean that the engineer is a reflection of himself, having spite for losing control as a product of growing up, losing the enjoyments of things he once did as a child, and that is what he's scared of? The way Engineer moves in a floating, ominous motion is inspired by one of his childhood fears from a YouTube animation. Equally, could Spy be trapped in the memory of Source games from his teen years? Because overall, a part of me felt that the inspiration and expression became the lore and story of the game. I just felt so much passion and expression from Nixlers that the fear and ambience inside of the game felt like a complete reflection of his expression, making everything seem like a part of his idea of horror and his own personal experience. Maybe I just feel that way through making the video, as the experience of learning more about the game design and its inspirations felt like a story in itself. Okay, apologies for such a long opening, but hopefully it was useful to jog your memory. Let's open the CTI folder. Probably the last time we will do this for the 1.2 update. Opening the CTI 1.2 folder, we can immediately see that there's a new manual for 1.2. And alongside the two cutscenes we already know, Ending and Ending Tower, there is also End 2. This pretty much confirms a New Game Plus ending cutscene. What will it explain? I want to avoid spoilers from the manual, so let's straight away just boot up the exe. Despite being a new version, it has our progress saved from before, with 2 stars marked at the top for completing both endings so far, as well as Tower Mode and Custom Mode being available. There's also a new menu, Achievements. Hover over an achievement for details. Some achievements are hidden, and must be unlocked to see further details. You can pause now to see a list of all of the achievements, or what we know of them now at least. They revealed that there is in fact a New Game Plus, the Hard campaign. There are also 6 mystery achievements with no hint on how to unlock them. We will definitely cover how in this video. The RDM achievement also teases a new monster, entity or NPC called Henry. Another mystery is what will happen if we unlock all of the achievements. Even though I've beaten the regular campaign and Tower Mode, these achievements are still locked. I guess achievements need to be recompleted to register in a new update. Does that mean that those campaigns have also changed? The original Tower Mode was tricky enough, but not as stressful as the Good Game 2 Easy achievement, which is to beat the normal campaign without dying once. Or Golden Pan, which is to beat the Hard Mode without dying once. We don't even know what that Hard Mode is or how hard that is. But another achievement is to complete the entirety of Tower Mode, all 50 floors, without dying once either. But how can we even start Hard Mode? We need to play the regular campaign again for the achievement anyway, so let's see what happens when we simply press play game. As you'd expect, as I finished the regular campaign already, we're given 2 options, normal and hard. Or maybe new players are also given these options in 1.2 and you can access Hard Mode straight away. I'm eager to try Hard Mode and see what it entails, but I'll quickly play normal mode and let you know if there are any changes and see if I can get any of those achievements. I'll see you in a second. Well, 20 minutes later for me, I finished the campaign again. I think I died around 6 times, so that GG too easy achievement could be a decent challenge, let alone the hard mode one. I did unlock the standard intelligence captured achievement though for beating the game, and ouch for dying once. That's 2 out of the 18 achievements. Okay, enough is enough. Let's finally give hard mode a go. When you spawn in, nothing seems abnormal, but I quickly spotted an Umbrella Man graffiti on the wall. The same graffiti with significance in Interloper, a series where there's some kind of sentient being hidden inside the source engine code, and even have other sentient beings perhaps made inside the game being held hostage. A link to a video explaining that will be in the description, but why is it here? I know the creator hadn't even seen Interloper when I spoke to him in the last video, and has since watched it and enjoyed it, but how and why has that been integrated into this game? There are also these new trash items that make noise when you walk into them, calling enemies towards you, making it harder to navigate maps without making noise. I captured the first intelligence fine.
Success. We have secured the enemy intelligence.
But when I did, a soldier started chasing me. I can't tell if he looked a little different with green on his legs, or if it was just him being in a different environment that seemed strange. It instantly made me remember the achievement we saw earlier though, Panic Attack. Stun a soldier by kicking a tin can at him. I immediately hid behind a corner with a can to try and bait him into a stun. Sure enough, it worked. On the next attempt though, I could escape into GM Construct.
Success. We have secured.
But what will happen if the soldier monster from there has already been revealed in Turbine? Straight away, the cutscene is different. Spy looks up to the sky and sees an entire city in GM Construct. Are we in GM Big City now? We spawn with a jeep like before, but this time it's in the middle of a road. The objective is the same too, but this time we can see the interiors of buildings, even one with a sniper inside, but I was killed by a medic before I could explore much further. On respawn, I noticed that those tin cans that make noise are blocking some doorways. I guess it's a good idea to knock these away if you already have aggro on you, so that they won't draw attention to you later when you're trying to stealth but they're blocking a doorway. Snipers are guarding each of the gas canisters around the map in separate buildings, which you obviously can't move very quickly around. So only enter these buildings if the medic or scout doesn't already have vision on you and aren't chasing you, or you'll just be shot by the sniper immediately. This map really cemented stealth for me compared to the first campaign, as I could get quite close to the medic without it noticing me as long as I was quiet and behind an object. But something did happen that I didn't expect. A completely new entity, completely disfigured and dirty, covered in mutated tumors and boils and rags, charged right at me with no introduction and a speed pretty similar if not faster than the soldier. I called for a medic as soon as I could and he exploded right next to me. I thought I got incredibly lucky, but after encountering him again I realized it's just meant to come up to you and explode, which doesn't kill you but slows you down, making it way easier for other monsters to catch up to you. Though this effect does seem to wear off fairly fast, as I encountered the medic not long after it happening later on and managed to escape. But what is this new monster? It's so disfigured it barely looks like it belongs in TF2. Is this the Henry entity listed in the achievements? I immediately checked my recording in slow motion and saw that it's actually the TFC civilian. I'm not sure how to counter him yet though. I guess run to as safe of a space as possible if you see one about to slow you. Maybe you can kick a tin can at him too. In any case, on my second life, I collected the 5 gas canisters and got to the buggy. But instead of driving to the bridge from places from your dreams, Spy comes across an ominous oval cut out of the underside of potentially a concrete underpass. A dark figure barely reveals itself from the depths of the darkness, but Spy enters anyway. The claustrophobic hallways you load into feels like a small beam hanging above a depthless void on the negative space of the screen. There's barely any space to move side to side, so tin cans can't be avoided here. You see patches of blood on the rough floor before coming across a keycard. Apparently, we need 4 to escape. Similarly to collecting the 5 keycards on the 4th level of the original campaign. But we know far too well now that we can't always trust the objective text. Exploring more, the thing in these tunnels is not similar to what we were familiar with in the cornfield map. If you saw my last video, you might recognize this as the Rat Man from Tower Mode. It's so cool to see it as part of its own level, contextualized in some world building. Does this mean that these tunnels or sewers are in the depths of the GMOD tower? That was what Nixlers had said inspired the Rat Man's integration into the first version. Although I died on my first attempt, it's fairly easy to survive against Ratman. It stays invisible, getting louder as it approaches you before it becomes visible and attacks. But if you just wait before it attacks to sprint away, it doesn't have time to attack you once visible, as the animation takes a while. Once it is visible though, make sure you don't get stuck in a corner. Just keep running away, trying to hide behind different walls until it loses aggro, which can take a very long time. If you can get away fast enough though, the Ratman will instantly reset back into its invisible state, which is way easier for you to deal with. If you can work out where it is just through sounds of footsteps while it's still invisible though, that is even safer. I'm not sure what this GMOD baby was doing in the corner though. The shadow figure, ARG man, also from Tower Mode, appeared this time. If you don't remember, he is referencing the strange figure spotted in old GMOD machinima animations. In this game, he pretty much just flashbangs you if you pass through him, blinding your sight that you can't spot other monsters, as well as letting out a loud noise alerting those other monsters that are nearby. These are really hard for you to spot if you have even a little bit of glare on your monitor. Oh yeah, and it turns out that the GMOD babies are just noisemakers like tin cans. The final 2 keys are both within one section, bearing more new entities, burning white figures that can travel through walls towards you. I'm not exactly sure what happens when they catch you yet though, because on my next attempt, I made it through the final door. Spy peeks his head out into an industrial area that could be a junkyard or factory. We can see the Minge from Tower Mode lurking behind a corner. We then load into the level. I just have to take a second to really say how impressive this campaign is so far. So many entirely new levels, and it's incredible to see all of these tower monsters within their own spaces and atmospheres. It's truly incredible. I can't appreciate this enough as a fan. Definitely the most creative TF2 horror out there, especially when it comes to world building. And the Minge wasn't the only Tower Mode creature in this environment. The Mangle is also here, matching perfectly with the Minge in this factory junkyard theme. The Minge slows you down over time, and the Mangle can walk through vents towards you to close those gaps. We can also see these little Demo Man imp creatures holding the batteries we can use to charge a gate to exit. And you can see in that clip that the fire button also launched a missile, but I couldn't do much with it aside from hitting the Minge to save myself, which I got an achievement for. I'm guessing you can break down these exploding barricades with the rockets to get more batteries, though it does seem to have a bit of a cooldown. Yeah, okay, so the rocket breaking walls definitely worked, but goddamn, that's a lot going on in this level. but I figured out you can steal batteries from the little demo man imp things. I have no idea what's going on with them, but I like it. In fact, you aren't stealing from them. I just realized they're blue demo men, and they actually seek you out to give you the batteries. Is this the first in-game entity we've seen that is actually on our side? Even with some camaraderie, this level is extremely chaotic. You have to explode your way through tons of walls and barriers to find all the batteries. Luckily, the Minge and Mangle are fairly slow, so you can run away a decent amount of the time. It can just be a bit tricky to stun them with the rockets, but oh my god is it satisfying when they do land. There is yet another entity we haven't seen before too, a walking sentry gun that can shoot the same rockets that you're using, but straight at you. It kind of looks more cute than anything though, not super terrifying in terms of visual design. The level overall, however, the most intense one yet. I think I'm on attempt 7 while writing this, and holy fuck is it nerve-wracking when you have a lot of batteries and don't want to die resetting that battery count. I found that opening a few doors and doing a loop around the path that you've cleared helps you to find enough batteries, but also give you enough time for the Devo imps to find and bring some to you too. Break too many doors and you can get around faster, but also sometimes release monsters that might be otherwise stuck. The imps did just stop appearing after a while though. My first theory was that the big red demo monster that kind of acts like a watchtower like eats them or something. I don't really know, but where else could they be going? Maybe I'm just being impatient and they haven't actually left. And after becoming a proud owner of the die 40 times achievement, I made it to the next floor. Spy enters a silent area with a sterile medical atmosphere. A noisy maze of checkered hallways and greasy backroom hallways lay before him. You need to turn on 10 fuses to restore the facility. Could this be the facility the engineer was working at? After all, this is the equivalent number of levels to where engineer's server room would be in the normal campaign, right? Next to a power switch that you activate, you see a message written in blood that reads "No C" under a drawing of a crossed out eye. And nearby there's also a burger looking item locked behind a door labelled 10. A cyborg Saxton Hale appears with his full brain exposed and a mechanical laser eye, who bounds towards you on all fours. When Saxton Hale is an event, he will attack you from the nearest one if you get too close. You know he's an event just from hearing event opening sound. And you can get away from him if you quickly run into a corridor with a tight corner. You can see remains of dead bodies near the fuse boxes. Are these mercenaries who have been trapped before you? You can see notes left in blood, possibly from these players. One says "No C" and another says "I am man." After turning on a few fuse boxes, Engineer appears. Did we just give him power through powering up the facility? The same sentry rocket mechanic is in this level too, although it's quite hard to hit Saxton with his speed and tiny hitbox. Apparently, if you hit him on his head, head-on, on his exposed brain, it can stun him, but it seemed like more hassle than the alternative of just continuing to run. Sometimes, he gives up chasing you after a second, and other times he charges you for what feels like forever. You really just have to cut corners as quickly and as harshly as possible and hope that you lose him. You can make this easier by tapping sideways into a wall while running forward to line up with the wall perfectly, so that you can tuck behind a corner as fast as possible without clipping into it. You can also strafe really quickly, especially in tight spaces, to slow him down a little while you run faster. At least it seems like he's slower because of how fast you're going, but it does also seem like he gets a bit confused by your pathing. When you do get him to leave a vent, if you can lose him quick enough, you can use the time of him getting back into the vent system to pass other tricky areas that have vents around to give yourself more time without all that pressure. I'll go into more details on strategy about this level and all the other levels, especially when you're trying to do the no death run achievement later on, but if you can get to the end of this, and you connect the last fuse box, the lights turn dim. But Saxton Hale doesn't stop chasing you. However, you might have noticed that around the map, doors were being opened for every fuse box that was activated. That cheeseburger was behind door number 10, the final fuse box. So assuming that is a very difficult hidden achievement, how is it that we get back down there when all the hallways looked completely different after that 10th fuse box? I guess we'll just have to find out later. Spy then spawns into the default final level, the server room, meaning that Hardmode does just have an extra level. But where the engineer were to normally teleport to you when you shut down a server, this happens. He is a lot more powerful than last time, completely phasing through walls. Did activating all the fuse boxes give him even more power to harness? When you respawn, you do so right in front of him again, not at the start of the level. In fact, the level's completely different. He chases you through some winding corridors into a gigantic chasm, where you find your first weapon of the entire game, a revolver. Now that you can finally fight back, if you can land enough shots on the engineer, he dies. Dropping the intelligence briefcase, but before you can pick it up, it slowly rises above your head, levitating. So the intelligence is the intelligence of the server. The content of the briefcase is the existence of intelligence itself. The intelligence is consciousness. Its appearance is made out of the missing textures of Source, turned red, constructed out of what the engine represents when there is a lack of a texture, the lack of anything, nothingness. It's just a video game engine filling the gaps of nothingness. And that's towering above you with gears, energy, and mechanical tendrils hurling the same chunks of energy at you that the engineer was earlier. And like earlier, if you can survive for long enough and chip away at the biggest monster of them all, you can break it down. From a gigantic beast into a humanoid form, but not a human form that you might be expecting.
Flip time!
Nice throw.
Hey! Spy! Engineer! Yeah. There is spy! What? Spy! Will fit you! Yes. We must find spy! Alrighty then. Oh no! Stop that car! Move that gear up! Go, go, go! Okay. Get her! Whoosh! What? Spy! Engineer. Yee! Yee! Yeah!
That's hard to follow up, honestly. So much packed into that one cutscene. My initial thoughts were just taking in and appreciating the creativity. The iconography and the new characters, each with their own air of significance and novelty, despite being reused assets, was incredible.
Back in the day,
Yeah.
the stop motion GMOD videos where they would just have the mercenaries just as like this big friend group doing stupid
Yeah.
shit. You know, like they were characters, they weren't like, you know, Engineer wasn't Del Conager, he was this dopey motherfucker who talks about bacon.
It was immediately clear that the cutscene is representing a choice of choosing friendship and the pleasures and moments that matter in life over power, recognition, and pride. The missing texture entity, which is probably akin to the intelligence itself, was definitely attempting to tempt the spy to gain intelligence, so absorb the spy into itself to achieve power, fame, recognition, and the spy refuses. At least I think he refuses? But how could the intelligence make that possible anyway? I mean, the power, fame, and recognition. Let's dig into the details of that part of the cutscene, because the later part of the cutscene was seemingly quite clear. Engineer and Spy's friend group simply missed Spy and wanted to spend time with him. Even Engineer, who had previously fallen out with Spy, seemed eager. Maybe he'd lightened up since his workplace was ruined by the intelligence being destroyed after Tower. But wasn't he destroyed in that cutscene also? Or is that Tower cutscene set after the events of this hard mode ending? It could be that the Engineer was offered the same deal with the devil that the intelligence offered Spy, but Engineer accepted it. And that's why he has a corrupted version of himself in the game. All the monsters and entities are previous souls who the intelligence had made the offer to, potentially, and they're being punished almost for taking that sinful opportunity. Looking closer, we can see flashes inside the intelligence figure of various imagery and text. The first appears when what I'll just refer to as the Hubris says, The Hubris reveals an image of Engineer smiling, indicating that he could make the spy and Engineer be friends again. Could that mean that the spy did actually take the deal of ultimate power? After all, they did become friends again right away after, with Engineer making almost the exact same face as the one in the Flash that appears within the Hubris. One thing that is for sure is that one of the original influences of the game, Nixl's missing being able to enjoy things with old friends, is still prevalent, and we can fairly safely assume that the spy is somewhat a representation of Nixl's to some degree, or at least the character is portraying similar emotions that have some real-world inspiration. The second image flash appears not soon afterwards as it asks Spy, "Isn't that what you've wanted since the very beginning? All you have to do is take the first step." The painting appears to be a flipped and unsaturated version of Pandora, a painting that depicts a story of a woman named Pandora opening a forbidden box, Pandora's box. You probably know the story, but the box contains all the evils of the human race: old age, illness, passion, poverty, and others. If she hadn't been overcome of that curiosity or greed that led her to open the box, the negatives would never have been released and never come about in the world. This draws a parallel to the spy declining the offer, even if the ending is a little ambiguous as to whether he does actually decline it or not. This suggests that those seeking pride or wealth in the real world are the root cause of evil and suffering in this world, which can be avoided if we don't give in to the superficial desires of excess pride, fame, or recognition. And this kind of cements for me that I wasn't really trying to force any message or anything with this kind of analysis, because what other reason would Nixl's put Pandora's box in a cutscene like this? That is pretty much the only message that can be drawn from it, although I will ask him to clarify, but I have no idea what else that could mean. The next two images to appear are what look like aerial views of source maps. As the Hubris says, "All of your work up to this point is garbage, and no one will remember you." The quote might draw parallels to how Nixl's may have felt self-conscious about his less seen artwork before CTI took off the way it did.
Shit, I mean, until that point, I've basically been a nobody, and I've sort of just had to accept the fact that I'm basically just drawing and making these games for myself and my 4 friends who actually care about it. So when I put CTI on Game Digital, I was sort of just putting it there for my friend to download, and I was like, okay, no one else is going to play this, but I'll just put it there just for the hell of it. And then suddenly I wake up and I check analytics, and in the span of a night, it has gotten quadruple the amount of attention SpongeBob Treasure Hunt has gotten in the year it's been online. I was like, holy shit.
Then again, the second map shown is definitely a top-down of the TF2 map Asteroid, which was a beta map added to TF2 of a new sci-fi space game mode that was never fully finished. This could potentially be a criticism of Valve not finishing things or not working on things unless there is a profit, which a lot of people often share the same disdain for. Ultimately, this is the exact same message of companies focusing on the wrong things or looking through the wrong lens when it comes to artistic endeavors.
It's a big hyperbole, it is inspired off of just the sort of spite I have seeing the things I grew up on as a kid just sort of being commercialized and, flanderized by corporations, or something as simple as people not really understanding what made it so unique. I used to write creepypastas as a kid, and now here I am in my 20s seeing fucking creepypastas be turned into movies, and I'm like, you don't get it. So it's less of an actual this is bad and needs to stop, and more so just me venting my personal frustrations.
The first map is of Gold Rush, a map that has been around since TF2's launch, the first payload map in the game, a beloved map that a lot of people see as one of the core Golden Age TF2 maps. The fact this appears first could be Nixl's saying, look, here's how good the products were when there was true passion being funded for the sake of art and innovation, not just profit. But I'm admittedly kind of grasping at straws here, and I'm a little confused by the potential meaning in this. Gold Rush appears only when the Hubris says garbage, and Asteroid only appears when he says no one will remember you. Something I'll definitely ask Nixl's about in the interview. The final image to appear is when the Hubris says, but I can change that, as a flash of a TF2 blog post appears. The blog post is one from February 2025, announcing that community source SDK projects such as Pre-Fortress or Team Fortress Classic can now be available as standalone games on the Steam store. As it appears, he says, but I can change that, It could be to say that if the hubris is a representation of the greed, ego, and a corporate mentality, that Steam or Valve views itself as generous and a bringer of opportunity as long as the content conforms with its own rules, i.e. it's under its own power, in this case it's on its own platform, Steam. I don't have much faith in that speculation though, as it would be quite pessimistic, as SDK mods being available on Steam just helps the accessibility to new players finding that mod, ultimately helping the mod creators continue to work on their mods and get exposure so that they can work on their passion projects. Though maybe this is referencing the $100 fee needed to make an SDK mod available on Steam in the first place, or any game for that matter, pointing out that again, this wasn't for the aid of passion projects but for monetary gain, just another way to secure a few more dollar bills. This could go back and forth as a bit of a debate though, as I'm sure Valve could make a lot of money with the time utilized for this in other places rather than being focused on making the Steam SDK integration possible. Yet again, another negative could be that adding an SDK integration on Steam means that most players won't bother playing as many mods that have external downloads to Steam with Steam SDKs available, meaning that to gain any popularity, these self-funded, unpaid passion project mods are almost required to pay that $100 if they want a decent shot at popularity or easy exposure. Whether that is an excessive price to pay depends on your view. Maybe this can fairly easily be crowdfunded if a game's good enough, or external products can still find exposure through forums or YouTube, so it's not compulsory. Or maybe you think the fee in itself is greedy anyway. It's really up to you, and to be honest, this has just gone on a bit of a tangent, so I'll move on and just ask Nixlers later. But it's a very interesting and thought-provoking element to add into a cutscene. In any case, Engineer and Spy get together again, and are friends. Is this simply a way to express that the good ending is choosing friendship over success, pride, and recognition, and that those things are more important ultimately? That syncs up fairly well with what seems apparent about the intelligence segment too, and a very similar sentiment to what Nixlers described in the previous video. After all, Nixlers titles this section of the cutscene Hubris on YouTube. In fact, if the figure, the spirit inside of the intelligence, or the intelligence itself, is a representation of the hubris itself, it makes sense that its form would resemble the spy, especially with a gibbous, as that is the hat Spy offered to Engineer in that tower cutscene. I wonder if the Engineer and Spy becoming friends again mirrors real life. If the game is an expression of friends not being able to enjoy what they used to, maybe Nixlers' friend reconnected with him more recently in real life. Maybe even through playing CTI after it became popular, and he wanted this to be expressed in a new update. There's this ridiculous but sweet idea in my head that there's a possibility that the two even came together to make that final wacky GMOD cutscene animation, like how they used to enjoy watching them together or would mess about making strange characters on GM Construct. But that's definitely a bit of a fantastical rose-tinted glasses thought. It's just something that came up when I realized how GMOD animation-esque that final cutscene really was with all the chaos going on, and it seems like whoever did make it had a lot of fun. Unless I'm missing any Easter eggs on the monitors in the background, that seems to be it in terms of things to look deeper into with the cutscene. I'm really eager to find out what Nixlers has to say, especially with whether or not Spy really destroyed the intelligence, or if he did take that deal of ultimate power. And I need to ask about the imps too. Don't think I forgot about that. And just like that, we are returned to the main menu, now with 3 stars at the top of the screen. Before we interview Nixlers again, let's see if we can discover any more secrets or Easter eggs. Surely there are some linked to the achievements, especially the hidden ones. We now have 6 out of 18 achievements, and the RDM achievement revealed that the Henry entity is actually the sentry gun monster. I'll get back to you with what happens after unlocking the next achievements, as well as any tips for each, and of course covering the big secrets as they come up. Chapters are of course in the description. For the non-mystery achievements, we have to beat all 50 floors on Tower Mode again, complete custom mode with all enemies enabled, find something strange in Turbine on hard mode, complete the normal campaign without dying once, and complete hard mode without dying once, and complete Tower Mode with at least 3 dead ringers in your inventory. Basically, don't get hit at all for all 50 floors on Tower Mode. First up, let's see if we can find the anomaly in Turbine Hard. As soon as I spawned in, I remembered the Umbrella Man graffiti, so I tried to interact with it by standing by it for a while and calling for the medic, but nothing happened. The only other new interactable objects in the map are these trash items, so I tried to kick them over to the graffiti, but even when I kicked it directly into the graffiti, nothing happened, nor if I kicked it at the heavy. I explored the rest of the map, but nothing seemed different, so I assumed something might happen once you capture all 3 intelligence briefcases. After the third one, I went to look around and thought I might as well check out Umbrella Man again. And sure enough...
Success. We have secured the enemy intelligence. We have taken the enemy intelligence. Success. We have secured the enemy intelligence. We have taken the enemy intelligence. Success. We have secured the
Umbrella
enemy
Man can
intelligence.
fly over walls to chase you, seemingly getting faster and faster after each intelligence capture, or at least getting faster the further away you are from him. On the final capture though, another entity spawns in.
We have taken the enemy intelligence.
Some kind of shadow creature that moves incredibly fast. I'm not completely up to date with the Interloper lore, so it could be one of the newer entities encountered in one of the newer episodes. If you do capture the last intelligence, the exit door completely disappears. You actually have to run all the way back up to where the intelligence is captured from on the other side of the map to leave this alternate version of Turbine Hard through a new doorway. When you do go through it though, you don't enter the standard city level that is usually the second level in hard mode, but skip straight onto the sewers. This will definitely come in handy when attempting to do a no death run. Anyway, the Deus Ex Machina achievement has now been unlocked. Okay, now that's done, let's do the normal campaign without any deaths, and I guess I'll just have my successful run on in the background while I discuss it. I thought I could probably get it pretty quickly, but I think it took me around 10 to 12 attempts before being victorious. So I'll give you a bit of advice for each level and for the enemies in each, in case you get stuck yourself. On the first level, the hallways get gradually barricaded as you capture more and more intelligence briefcases. But for the first 2 captures, if you stick to the complete right side hallways, the heavy rarely goes there and you can get those caps for free. On the third one, you do have to stick to the middle because the right side gets barricaded, but let's be honest, the heavy is pretty easy to run away from. And once you do, the GM Construct Soldier level is super easy too. The canisters are in each of the 4 corners of the map, and a final one right next to the Jeep. So just capture each one as fast as you can, and you'll probably end up stunning the soldier around the Jeep area. So you know every time you get there with a new fresh gas can, you can simply stun him and run away again. For the bridge level, honestly it's very simple again, the last easy level, I'd say. And in this one, you really shouldn't sprint much, because you can easily take a step too far and get insta-killed, completely resetting the run. But right at the start of the run, you can sprint before you meet any snipers, and these zones here that I've put on screen are completely safe to run in. If you sprint in these safe zones and do the route that is hopefully on screen now by holding down the walk button for brief periods, which is basically almost tapping but a bit more so you go a bit faster, you'll be able to activate the generators and get up to the north door with no problem. But this next level is where it gets tricky. Opening the final doors can vary in difficulty a lot, depending on where the medic or scout are located. Actually, to be honest, on my attempts I didn't encounter the scout all that much, just by chance, but the scout can be quite buggy around the final doors, as he can sometimes spawn on the other side of them. It actually happened with the medic once too, which can be quite annoying if you're just about to get to the final level with no deaths, but a glitch is what kills you. What I will say for advice though, is to get this keycard on the left first, as you don't want to risk going into a dead end later on. The best strategy is to camp from this right hand side area, because it's as close as you can get to the doors as possible, and Demoman doesn't trigger his siren until you're quite close to the gates from that angle. It also makes an amazing place to run back to after you've opened a door, as the medic is called to the location of the Demoman, which is easy to slip away from in that right direction. And there are plenty of options to run away to if you do end up being chased there anyway. There are 3 of the 5 keycards around this area too, so you can kind of farm this little loop to maximize survival. I'd finally suggest to walk into the main path where the gates are slowly, to check if the medic is nearby the gates rather than full sending it every time, because if the medic is kinda nearby and you go deep into one of the later gates, or the medic is even hiding behind the demo siren, then it's basically a one-way ticket to start the entire campaign again. But right after you finish that level, it's already the final level with the engineer. And the only advice for this level is to make sure you spot these red marks on the ground, as this is where the engineer is able to teleport to. Other than that, I'd recommend following the route I'm showing on screen now, which prioritizes the hardest servers to shut down first, just saving time if you do get caught, so that you don't need to do that whole part of this level again. And also maximizing the best positions for the engineer to be in and teleport to, so he doesn't chase you into a one-way corridor. And hopefully you didn't have too much trouble, because that was the exact run I took when I got the winning no death run for the normal campaign. And it seems like that was just an achievement, and as far as we know, nothing else was unlocked, unless it's just a very secret. Before trying the entirety of Hardmode with no deaths, I thought it might be nice to get used to the monsters a little bit more, so I decided to try the achievement of completing custom mode with all enemies enabled. Now let me tell you, this is an absolute clown fiesta, pure mayhem. A considerable amount of the possibility of this being possible is luck. Where enemies spawn at the start of a level and where they decide to run has a massive randomness element. That being said, if you're trying to get this achievement and want a bit of help, I'd recommend doing this route that's on screen now. If you stick to the right wall, you can trigger the Saxon Hail early so that he doesn't pop up at the intelligence, while also cancelling his aggro soon after. The soldier will almost always chase you at the end of this right hallway, so you can stun him here to get a bit more space. Now, to get to the intelligence, Henry and snipers will be guarding it, so try and do this footwork that I'm looping here. Because you move faster while moving diagonally, if you swoop down straight to the left as you move out, you'll make some space. Henry will trigger his rocket, and then after you pause for a second, you can move back up and to the right and grab the intel. The rocket should look onto you, and while you move back down again to the left, the rocket will be thrown off course. It sounds complicated, but it's surprisingly easy to do and quite intuitive, as those pauses are pretty much timed to when the snipers would shoot you anyway. Speaking of, because it's custom mode, like tower mode, the snipers have a longer charging time before they shoot, so you can get quite a bit more leeway and can sprint without worrying about being headshot instantly. Then you can run down the left hallways, which have a high chance of having no monsters compared to the middle, and cap the intel. If you can, try to keep track of where the medic is, because he will run to the intel from that direction incredibly fast when you cap. Even pausing at the intel for a split second just to see where he'll be coming from, even through audio cues with headphones, can be incredibly useful, so that you don't just start running and get him running towards you from the opposite direction. Once you have a cap, start that loop again and just pray that you get lucky. Obviously, go of course if you have to, but in general that loop is the safest, especially on the first capture. But like I say, it's gonna take a lot of attempts, just keep going if you really want that achievement. But so far for me, nothing was unlocked, or at least no secrets were explicitly revealed after that achievement either. Although that was very testing, I still didn't feel ready to no death the hard mode campaign, even though that's probably where most of the secrets and new achievements are. And I wanted to try a no death tower mode run first, but I had no idea how different tower mode was going to be, or what was hiding in it. I had no idea it would be new at all. To start with, there are these new different ways of powering up the elevator to get to each next floor. They do have those 4 standard generators to turn on like normal, but on my first attempt it was a companion cube that you have to bring to a button just like in Portal. Again, the universe is definitely extending between Valve games. The companion cube slows you down drastically, so you definitely need to play it with more of a stealth playstyle after picking it up instead of just running away from enemies, which is what I normally do. There are also these Half-Life GMOD socket looking charges, which act similarly to the gas canisters from the soldier level, except they make a very loud beep when activated next to the elevator. But those original soldier gas tanks are now also integrated into tower. And guess what? The demo imps are also in there. Probably some of the shortest tower levels you'll ever see, just because the demo man imps are bringing you the batteries so quickly. You can kind of just wait for them to come to you a little bit, like you can see here. I wonder how useful this will be in the no death hard mode campaign run. The worst ones are probably either these alarms, which are incredibly loud and will definitely prove to be very irritating in later levels with lots of sound sensitive enemies, as well as these buttons surrounded by red demo man stickies which explode on the button activation, knocking you back temporarily and also making a fairly loud noise. I also came across an Easter egg that Nixlers mentioned last video, where one of the computers has a chance to be on and play audio. In this case, the audio was the interview tape engineer is watching in the previous tower cutscene. Will that be different in this tower mode cutscene version? Aside from the new level layouts with landmines, tin cans and GMOD babies around, with the new energy objectives, something else is different about this new tower update, and it was only a matter of time before something happened.
Doctor!
That was probably one of the scariest enemies yet. You seemingly had nowhere to run. This was a self-proclaimed interloper, able to move between games via a game server, and I must say looks extremely similar to Nixlers' profile picture, or at the very least, one of his other characters from his other works. This is of course part of the jump scare we saw at the start of this video. In any case, there was no way of escaping. But when the game relaunches itself, you're given a dead ringer right off the bat on floor 1. This is pretty huge for something that could potentially change the entire lore with one random out of cutscene encounter. If this is meant to be Nixlers himself hopping between games, does this mean he has ties to the Hubris in other ways aside from the spy character potentially being based on some of his feelings, and by extension the intelligence itself? We'll just have to keep playing, and of course ask him later. While trying to get the achievement though, this entity appeared again. I thought it was just a one-time novelty Easter egg encounter. This time, instead of doing a cool fake in-game console sequence, it genuinely crashed my game. But what will happen when I reopen it? Everything seemed normal. It just brought me back into the main menu, and when I joined tower mode, I was on floor 1 again, this time without a dead ringer. A little annoying as I was a few floors in and more confusing than anything. Could it have just been an actual glitch? Surely not. After a couple of hours of trying to beat tower mode with no deaths, I simply just had a good run and made it to floor 50 without using any dead ringers. I'm not sure how much I can say strategy wise or any tips because half of it is just small things you pick up from playing, and discovering ways to navigate around enemies is so much of the fun you get from this game mode. but a couple things to consider are the mechanisms to open the doors. With the sticky bombs, try to activate them in a way where you're being pushed in a desirable direction when being chased so that you aren't knocked back into enemies. And for the companion cube, before you've picked it up, really try to scout out the area as best as you can by hiding behind walls and without sprinting, so that you can maximize the chances of a clear path back to the elevator when you're carrying the cube, as you really are being slowed down a lot and most enemies can easily catch up to you. Also, definitely do just let the demo man imps bring you the batteries. It's just so much easier that way. Tower mode is so fun though, and incredibly gripping. You'll enjoy the trial and error experience a lot if you play, even if it's a bit rage inducing. I found another one of the hidden achievements while playing too though, by accident. High stress. In tower mode, escape a door while being slowed. I guess this can be done while being slowed by the minge beam, or even the civilian explosion slow. Okay, so enough messing around. It's finally time to do the hard mode no death run. And there are still 3 more hidden achievements to find. It took me around 4 hours to finish the hard campaign mode with no deaths, so I'll try and go over the strategy I used to try and maximize my chances of winning for each level. For the first turbine level on the regular campaign, running through the far right corridor is safest like I said earlier, but it gets blocked off after the first couple of captures. But on hard mode, it stays open all of the levels, so I'd recommend taking this route for maximum safety, although it is a bit longer. So I guess it kind of depends how tilted you are from the last time you died in deciding whether or not you want to take a shorter but more dangerous route like the middle or left side, or longer but more safe route on the right side. Now, when you cap the 3rd intelligence, I found that the Umbrella Man secret level is actually easier than the standard city level. I mean, I barely tried going the city route at all, to be honest. There are just so many extra random variables there, whereas with the Umbrella Man detour, you can predict almost everything. The first capture is completely free, no monsters are spawned in at all. On the way to get the 2nd intelligence, however, if you take this route, the Umbrella Man will spawn directly in this corridor. You can then loop back around the right corridor and easily get the intelligence. Just make sure you hug the right wall on the way up if you're coming in from this right corridor, and then move to the left immediately after you capture to be able to get away around Umbrella Man. If you're coming from the left corridor, just do the same with the left wall. The only unpredictable thing is the 2nd monster that appears. It seems super random how much he'll chase you. If he starts to chase you, it's pretty much a guarantee that you're dead. But if you can get away incredibly quickly, it cancels the charge. The thing is, you only seem to encounter it half the attempts or less, so either way, it's a lot less dangerous or aggravating than having to navigate the city level if all you have to worry about is the Umbrella Man, who will actually not even catch up to you if you stop sprinting and just walk. I found this out because one time it looked like the Umbrella Man actually blocks the other monster from getting past, so I started trying to use him as a human or umbrella shield. I don't know if this actually works though, but it just goes to show how much easier this is than the city level. And there's also something else that we'll get into very soon, which explains why this route is even more safe than the city level. But once you've escaped this Interloper turbine level, like I mentioned, you'll skip the big city level and head straight into the basement sewers where the Ratman is. The best strategy for this is to just take it really slow and listen out for Ratman's footsteps. It can be easy to get cornered, so you may as well completely avoid him. The keycards aren't too hard to get, and once you've gotten past the Ratman in the first stage, if you're fast enough, you'll likely only encounter him again 1 or 2 more times. And if you can track him well enough to give yourself a decent amount of space, when you're in the area where the burning men come in, which is after the 2nd door, you'll have enough time to just run in some kind of loop to exhaust it until it disappears, without the stress of also running into Ratman. Definitely a level to take your time with. This next one is definitely the most unpredictable level, with the most variables and random elements due to the sheer amount of monsters. There are 2 main strategies that you can take. One is to let the Demo Man imps bring you the batteries, though you should still destroy quite a few walls so that you have options for when monsters do inevitably find you and show up. And the minge is your main problem here, so always try to keep in mind where it might be coming from and how you'll be able to either escape or use a rocket to stun it. Its footsteps are very unique, so you should be able to hear it coming. There are also a couple of batteries that you almost definitely have to collect yourself in the top right of the level that are behind barricades. but if you can keep track of enemies and keep the map open with plenty of places to run to, it's not the hardest thing in the world. At least, not as hard as you might initially think when you first experience the sheer amount of enemies in this level. The other batteries in the north area are all super close together too. So once you know the rough area of all the batteries, you can pretty much collect them all in one sweep. This method is what ended up working for me, and it is maybe a bit more reliable. However, there is a third method, and although it's more of a straight up gamble, it's more reliable in a sense if the spawn setup is just right, and it actually involves a secret we haven't discussed yet. You see, the first time I got to this junkyard stage while trying a no death run, when I died I thought I might as well keep playing the level to try and experiment with the best routes to take or strategies to use. And when I completed this level on the normal hard mode run, I didn't fully explore all of the rooms, especially behind the explosive walls. This time I found one explosive wall near the top that I hadn't explored, but I couldn't work out how to guide a rocket up there. Eventually, I realized that you can use Henry to hit other enemies, so why not use him to try and demolish this wall as well? And after a couple attempts, I got a spawn where Henry was already in that top room, and led him to the hallways to open the door. And just like that, we found one of the hidden achievements. In the secret room, there's a graffiti of Nixliz's character, with the message, "Thanks for everything." Again, this is extremely similar to the entity that appears that crashes the game that we saw at the start of the video, associated with the wrong place at the wrong time achievement, and leads me to believe that Nixliz could have a new direct involvement in the game's actual lore. I do know this character is very similar to Nixliz's other characters, so it may not be representative himself, and I may have to pull myself back, because we all know from last time that the chances are he will just say it's a nice little Easter egg. But why would he add something that looks so similar to this as an interloper entity that literally crashes the game? There's something similar and even more exciting in that secret room though. It's an arcade machine. When you walk up to it, it launches a brand new game. Newbie and the Haunted House. Developer build, do not release. Newbie was broke and needed to pay rent. Against his better judgment, he agreed to do a week of housekeeping for his neighbor. Little did he know he didn't have a neighbor. Collect 8 keys scattered around the house to escape. This is the game Nixliz spoke about in our previous interview. One that was the predecessor to CTI. Similar to the game he originally wanted to make, that CTI was just a fun little TF2 parody version of, but obviously that ended up blowing up. This minigame must be a small demo of what that original game was. It plays very similarly to CTI but with a new, bold and striking art style and a character similar to the Interloper one. This is the character Nixliz refers to as Newbie in the previous interview. There's a mod called Newbie now available on the Steam Workshop for a game called Rivals of Aether. The trailer looks identical to the arcade game. But in this trailer for the Newbie character, when it shows Newbie finding the 8 keys and leaving, it transforms into a platformer fighting type game. This looks pretty much identical to the fighting game the mercenaries are playing in the hard mode ending cutscene. The description explains the lore of the mod, which is similar to what the arcade machine details. Newbie was once a famous video game character until his franchise was cancelled. He then had to work odd jobs as he faded into obscurity, until one day he got a job officer to clean a local haunted house. So essentially Nixliz took the protagonist of his own original game and has turned it into a fighter for Rivals of Aether, with its own unique kit and abilities and lore. This lore also seems to somewhat mirror the sentiment of a ruthless creative industry. There's a different type of fear this game induces too, playing it in CTI. The monster moves so sporadically and unpredictably and seems to be completely impossible to run away from. Shork watched me play this part and he said it might just be moving completely randomly, but at this point I just played enough time to get through it and finish it once. The really tight vignette makes it a lot more scary walking around each corner, and the atmosphere is so strong and so different to CTI. I'd love to see it as a full fleshed out world in a standalone game. And if you do manage to get all 8 keys, this extra stills cutscene plays.
Come on, I don't have all day. Yes!
You win.
Another successful mission.
A bit of an absurd one, where the factory monsters are standing behind the spy, almost watching him play the arcade game. Spy then gives them the finger and just waltzes away. But you get to skip the rest of that level and head straight into the Saxton Hale factory area. So this is another route option if you're struggling to go the standard route. Maybe you'd find it easy to get Henry to shoot this one gate and head straight to the arcade, than to risk finding all of the batteries. But does dying in the arcade machine count as a death in a no death run? I actually DM'd Nixlers before the interview to ask this specific question, and he said that in fact in both the arcade room and the Interloper rooms, deaths don't actually count as a death. So these are definitely both easy ways to get through the hard campaign rooms for your no death run. I will say though, that Henry shot to open the gate is way more risky than just doing the Interloper level, but I guess it all depends on what you find easiest. Okay, so now it's just the Saxton Hell floor to get through before the final boss. And like before, I'll just show you the route I took on my winning attempt, although I actually did beat this level on my first try after getting to it on my no death run. It was the same kind of route I took when completing my normal run, so I was already kind of accustomed with how to behave. The same way as the normal run, just move diagonally to outrun Saxton and take tight corners. Some other things I picked up were just activate the electrical boxes in this sort of order, because that's what worked best for me in terms of Saxton Hell vent locations and the engineer teleport points. Definitely try to remember where engineer spawns at each activation so you know which direction to go in, because he can catch you out very easily if you go straight into a hallway which he can then actually teleport into and trap you. You can always rewatch my run of this to check the best kind of areas to run to after each activation. But what about that burger? Well, in that same test run where I found the arcade machine, I really wanted to find out how to get to that burger too, as I'd seen it in my first hard mode run. But I quickly noticed that it's locked behind the 10th door. But when you power up the 10th door at the end of the level, the door behind you locks, and you're forced to run to the exit. So how do you get back? Well, upon running through the normal way a couple of times, I realized that you aren't actually forced through that final door, and you do end up back in the normal facility. It's just that your vision is so restricted that you might not notice that you're back there, or maybe that was just me. But yeah, pretty straightforward at that point. If you've lost Saxton Hale, you can make your way back to the start of the level and get the cheeseburger for the final hidden achievement. Yeah, that's right, that's the final hidden achievement. But that's just the hidden achievements. What happens when you complete the no-hit hard run and by extension get 100% of the achievements? I'm hoping for a secret cutscene, which is unlikely judging by the fact that there are no more cutscene files, unless they're super hidden in some of the depths of those folders. Or maybe it's a new picture cutscene like the arcade one. I'm sure at the very least there's an extra star in the main menu, or something small at least. But we still need to do the final boss for the no death run. The server room is obviously this different version, which is pretty straightforward. Even the boss is easy, to be honest. Again, I did this no death on my first time and actually didn't even get hit once. But if you've played the Binding of Isaac before, you'll probably also find it fairly simple. You can just kind of get away with running in circles around the boss and alternating between a close and far distance to make sure you dodge the rocket projectiles. And hopefully you can end the no death hard run without too much hassle. But what happens then? The cutscene played as normal and I returned to the menu as normal. That's not super underwhelming, we kind of knew that that was likely the case, but damn, I really was expecting at least a 4th star on that menu. Oh well, at least we know for sure that we covered everything and have that feeling of fully finishing the game. I'm not even one to try and 100% game achievements at all, I really just don't care about achievements normally, but I enjoyed CTI so much and it's such a fun concept that honestly, I wanted to try and get every last drop of experience out of it, and if anything, doing those achievements almost felt like another mini campaign and something to accomplish, even if there was no reward of a new cutscene or story at the end. If that's how achievement hunters feel about games, they want 100% because they love the world building or atmosphere of a game, then damn, more power to them. Before we finally lift the veil and talk to Nixlers about our theories and questions, let's quickly check the new manual, seeing as at this point we think we've encountered all spoilers that would be in there. Well, at least that's what I thought. Some seriously large bits of lore are casually dropped in the manual that add so much new context and things to consider about our current theories. Right off the bat, the visuals look completely redone. It looks really nice. It has the controls and main explanations explained in some depth, but most notably this tips and tricks section. It actually tells you about the diagonal strafing strategy here. I don't think it was mentioned in the last manual, so I'm honestly kind of happy that I worked it out for myself because it made me feel kind of smart. It also explains that hitboxes are probably smaller than you think, meaning you can outmaneuver enemies. I definitely felt this a lot with the Minge. If you move diagonally, you can actually get away from it quite a lot of the time, as long as there's some kind of block nearby to break the slowing beam down, which there almost always is. Below that is the Bestiary. I don't think it was called that before. I like it though. It reminds me of Crypto Forest. And inside the Bestiary, along with new descriptions of behavior, locations, personality, and even some strategy for countering each, we have new official artworks for the monsters. Really, really cool to see the new renders for them outside of their in-game sprites, which were being used for the last manual. I won't cover everything because this video is already super long. I'll let you read these in your own time if you want to, but there are a few really, really cool facts to note. For example, it's clarified that snipers are actually a hive mind working together. Not only is this a cool fact, it clears up that the corruption in the game that is affecting the mercenaries and other entities isn't a hive mind itself. It didn't seem that way to me, but I know some people were speculating about similar ideas online. Another thing to note is that for some monsters such as the Scout, a mercenary being corrupted is directly mentioned. Unless I'm misremembering, people being corrupted in the game wasn't a cemented piece of lore last time we played and spoke to Nixlers, and just a theory from my last video and what others were speculating about too. Maybe this is one of the things Nixlers changed his mind on. As for the largest lore drop, here's what excited me the most so far about the manual. The engineer is described as an omnipresent enigma, meaning that he can be anywhere at any time. To me, this sounds like he can technically behave as an interloper himself. Whether this connects to the real engineer, I'm not sure about. However, it also reveals that the engineer is the intelligence's personal guardian. This almost creates a chicken and the egg scenario. Did he create the intelligence himself and then become submissive to its great power, like Seymour from Little Shop of Horrors submitting to Audrey too? Or did the intelligence already have this corrupting power and convince the engineer to become his guardian for protection? In a similar deal to what we saw with the intelligence and spy in the Hubris cutscene. We also get an insight with the Burning Man. I was unsure of the origin of this entity, but it turns out it's the Wicker Man. The Smouldering Phantom is probably a reference to the 1973 horror film with the same name, where a cult burns a gigantic Wicker Man in a sacrificial ritual. It's a film I really want to rewatch actually. The remake of that film is also where the Nicolas Cage meme came from in like 2009. Yeah, that's right, I've got references for all the 45-year-olds watching. Shout out Sebastian from Worthing, watching this while munching on his Thursday night Chipwick meal deal. It's also made canon that the Mangle was one of Engineer's early unsuccessful creations, and Henry is simply Engineer's pet sentry gun, obviously with a few extra attachments. Why is he called Henry though? Well, Henry is the name of one of the original Team Fortress members in the comics, John Henry. He was a steel driver who used to make explosives. It's such a reach, but it could be that somehow John Henry's sentience is in the sentry gun. I don't even know, it's getting a bit far-fetched now, but it's just so fun to theorize these things. It's also revealed that this version of a corrupt Saxton Hale was one of Medic's experiments gone wrong. Anyway, to finish up with the manual, it gives rundowns and some artwork of each of the levels, and a bit more for their backstory, with some tips and tricks for if you get stuck. Again, I'll let you cover that in your own time if you're interested, although it is stated that in the final server room, shutting down the 8 servers will disrupt the world from being held together. So in the normal difficulty ending, it does seem as though the CTI world is destroyed, even if the engineer did somehow find a way to escape. But remember, the engineer is missing in that following cutscene. And finally, right at the end of the manual, another huge piece of lore is dropped, this time involving the laboratory. We know this is where the medic conjured up the twisted creation of the monster that used to be Saxton Hale, but it was revealed that a supposed bottomless supply of medics was used to carry out this task, and many others like it. This means that the intelligence is definitely harnessing some kind of power for slavery, almost using what it has corrupted to make more powerful entities to serve itself. kind of reminding me of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And you're probably bored of hearing this now, I totally get it, but it does line up with that sentiment of large companies again, particularly how the companies have the purpose to just gain further power or money exponentially with no end in sight, and the exponential growth and no end in sight being the keywords for what this is maybe clarifying as its own little sentiment as part of the overall metaphor or analogy. But again, I really am just trying to look for any kind of speculation here that is in line with what Nicholas has previously stated, and he did say last time that not everything has direct meaning or a parallel, and it was more of just an expression. In any case, the manual goes on to further explain that once the bottomless supply of medics was eventually and quite messily exhausted, and to prevent any more casualties, the intelligence chose to simply lock the entire facility down. So once again, there are even more questions than ever before. And all of these questions do seem to be pointing in the same directions, almost like we're going in circles, so it seems like we're on the right path. But that means it's finally time where we can get some of our old and new questions answered. Potentially our theories and hopes will be completely crushed by what is truly lore and what is just some fun, creative artistry. What are the secrets and Easter eggs we missed? Is there any more lore from the monsters, levels, and environments? And what went into the game and character design this time? And what's next for CTI or other Nicholas games, comics or otherwise? How much was really behind these new additions, and what has changed about the lore that Nicholas hinted at in the message regarding what he wanted to explain and cover in this upcoming interview? Let's just jump straight into it, and again, a massive thank you to Nicholas. I wasn't 100% sure where the final ending takes place on the timeline. Is that something you can clarify?
Yeah, admittedly, I didn't really think of it chronologically either.
Yeah.
I do know the tower mode ending is kind of implied to be before all of it, but at the same time, it's also really artsy and weird, so I don't really think of it in chronological order. They're kind of just in their own sort of relative chronological order, I guess.
The design of the Hubris in its like humanoid form design, but also if you could go into what he's talking about, and then of course the images that pop up when he's saying certain things, like the painting of Pandora, and then it shows, I think this is right anyway, a top-down view of Asteroid and Gold Rush from TF2, and then yeah, okay,
Asteroid and Gold Rush,
and then I have some. Again, I can go into what I thought you might have meant, but you might as well just go ahead and say it. And then obviously the final image is, I believe, the blog post about the Source SDK.
Well, this is going to be a little bit awkward to talk about because when I wrote that dialogue and recorded it, it was very personal to me, and I don't really agree with a lot of what I was thinking back then. But at the time, I wrote that dialogue to be a way to vent about my imposter syndrome about having made a game that got this popular. Again, the cutscenes are meant to be like artsy and stupid in a way for anyone to interpret them however they want. So if you want, you can view it in the literal sense, in that the intelligence literally corrupted this GMOD machinima world, and you have to stop him, and the ending is the intelligence begging the spy not to destroy the intelligence, and then just being an asshole because he knows that he's going to get shot anyway. But when I was writing it, I wrote the dialogue to be basically just me complaining about myself. Like, CTI, when I had first made it, wasn't really a high-effort project. Like, it was just something I made and then released publicly for fun, and then it got big. And as a result, there were a lot of expectations. People wanted 1.2, and they wanted it to be good because it would have been the final update. And, since it'd be the last one, people would be wanting more. I wanted it to be substantial enough to actually feel like a proper send-off for people. And I'm not gonna lie, thinking about it that way was not very good for me. It felt kind of awful. I felt kind of miserable. So when I was recording that dialogue, I'd written the script, and it was sort of just me calling myself a fraud. You're calling him Hubris, I'm gonna go with that too. He didn't have a name, but fuck it, I like it, so... We'll call him Mr. Hubris. Mr. Hubris, the intelligence man. He's the intelligence personified. He is how the intelligence portrays itself. So when the intelligence is defeated, it being like the force behind the world being all fucked up, wants the spy to give in because it did the same thing to Engineer, and that gave it an opportunity. But if you look at it from my metaphorical sense when I was writing it, that was sort of just me looking at CTI in a very cynical light, where I could just throw away all of my ambitions and just do what is expected of me. Like, just become the CTI guy. And
Yeah.
people would love me. People would really accept me. But in my head, even though CTI is something fond of me, it's something I do want to move past. But at the time, me feeling that way felt very selfish because people really like CTI. So by turning it down, I was basically throwing away a lot of opportunities because, like, get real, not many people are going to stay tuned for any of the other things I'm going to make. And that's a lot of what the dialogue was implying. Like, before that, all I had really done is just concepts and a very select few finished projects, mostly being like video game mods or like unfinished comics.
Yeah.
So I was basically just like beating myself up for being a nobody and turning down a big opportunity. I don't know, I feel like a pretentious douchebag talking about it, but it was really just a way for me to vent about my own imposter syndrome. Even though I was very mean-spirited in that dialogue, I wanted the rest of the cutscene to show that CTI is more than just like something I made that popped off. Like, CTI, even though it was a very low-effort project at the start, had become something that I was very proud of even before it blew up. Like, everyone I'd shown it to really liked it. I had ended up becoming very proud of it. It led to me becoming a much better animator. It gave me a much firmer grasp of a lot of different ways to pull off horror effectively, and making it gave me something to do during a lot of really rough parts of my life. And even though I really did want to move on from CTI, and at points I really was frustrated with how people only viewed me as the CTI guy, it's still something very near and dear to me, and you know, I wanted to end it off how I started. I wanted to send it off in a way that felt right. So I animated a cute little GMOD movie.
Yeah.
Just like the original pitch for the ending, with all of them going to the theme park.
Yeah.
And it felt perfect, because at the end of the day, CTI is just a dumb project. It's based on a very dumb genre of old internet videos, and even though a lot of people find it scary for some reason, it's very lowbrow and self-aware of what it is. So it felt like the perfect way to send it off. Just being a stupid machinima. It felt like the perfect way to end it. Like, I don't know if people would have wanted it to have a serious ending with like deep lore implications, and I feel like if I was just trying to fill a quota, that's what I would have done.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it felt right. It felt right.
It felt like perfect, if I'm being honest, because obviously I was like trying to like find theories or whatever, but by what the cutscene seemed like, it did just feel very heartfelt and lighthearted at the same time because of the two segments of the cutscene. It's not like I got everything right, and I'll let you just see the video when I send it to you before it goes up about what my theories were, but in the same vein of what you're saying, like you don't want to do something just because it's what will get you the fame or get you the money or things like that. You should focus on what's important to you and what you're passionate about, like when you first worked on Capture Intelligence. And yeah, I don't know, I think that is kind of perfect, because for anyone who cares to try and work out the meaning, I think people will find something at least similar or adjacent to that, and actually they can see a clear message there. But at the same time, like you say, it's self-aware, it's not trying to be anything it's not. The rest of the cutscene is the perfect, like, just silly, stupid, fun Gmod animation that's just like havoc and chaos, and I don't know, to me that's perfect.
It's like the perfect summary of what CTI is. You get this super gritty cutscene with just viewing down the spy's barrel as he shoots some fucking like eldritch genius loci and frees himself from the fucking TF2 equivalent of the city of Arlier. And then it hard cuts to Heavy fucking having a Smash Bros competition crash out and throwing them a man at a TV.
That's so fucking fun. Yeah, the ragdolls in that scene. So good. I'm
not exactly the best at animating in Gmod, and I wanted the end cutscene to properly feel like one of those old Gary's Mod videos that you would have watched back in 2013, like an Uberman video or an old El Toro video, and I was trying very hard to emulate that sort of sense of humor. I was literally studying those videos, like I was watching them and taking notes.
I mean, I tell you, it came across very well, because it felt like you'd just been making those animations yourself for fun since those animations were popular. Like, it fit the atmosphere so perfectly. I mean, the map choice, and then just the types of gags, like the vehicle ones. I think that works very
I'm
well.
so proud of it. I'm really proud of myself for getting that done in such a short amount of time. And I managed to get it done in one day too, so I was pretty proud. So it gave me a lot more time to focus on like actual gameplay things before the thing actually dropped.
That's insane, because that's a long cutscene. That's like 5-minute cutscene. One thing I was nervous about asking you is, I don't know how many of the viewers thought this for the first video, but because a lot of the first update, or at least the update I played, didn't have a lot of explicit lore for each character, it really felt like hearing what inspired you to make the characters in the game itself became kind of the lore of the game, which is why I kind of lean towards hypothesizing about the self-insert character with the Interloper. But I was worried to ask you, like, how much of that final cutscene was, like, if the spy was a representation of you to some degree, or at least representing the feelings you had been having, because I had thought that it was still surrounding those themes you mentioned last time of the lost childhood, or no longer connecting with friends or companies flanderizing passionate ideas that people were authentically just passionate about, like those creepypasta things, and then companies taking that for profit. I don't know, I think it's really cool that to some degree that was what you were thinking. Like, you knew that you could find success doing this thing, but you ultimately didn't want to do it for those reasons. Would you want to go into more detail about the images that flash on screen, like Pandora and...
Pandora's box is meant to be taken as literally as it comes off.
Yeah.
Like, he's holding out his hand, he's like, I can give you everything. And that's what Pandora's box is. That is the story of Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Almost beat for beat. The engineer and the gibbous show up for pretty obvious reasons, because, you know, the engineer is supposed to be someone very close to the spy, however you want to interpret that. Like, he's the final boss of the game. In all of the cutscenes, he has a lot of, like, importance, even in the first cutscene where he doesn't even show up. He's meant to be a very important character, and as such, him being the person first corrupted by the intelligence is meant to be important. So, like, you know, him showing the engineer in that, and the gibbous that spy tried to give the engineer as a present, is playing on that. I think he shows the maps next. That's kind of just like a joke. When he says no one will remember you, he shows Artie Asteroid because no one remembers that map. Everyone forgot about it. And when he says that, like, everything you've done is garbage or whatever, he shows Gold Rush because I fucking hate that map.
Oh my god, I was like, yeah, maybe he's trying to say that Valve no longer funds things that people are passionate about. They just think about money, and they showed Gold Rush because that was like one of the golden age TF2 maps that everyone loves.
TF2 is actually, I mean, CTI is actually a psyop to get people to not play Gold Rush.
And then how about the SDK?
It was sort of just like a spur-of-the-moment thing, because them publicizing the SDK happened sort of around when I was finishing up CTI, and seeing as a more streamlined way for developers to modify source games came out at the same time as me working on something very heavily influenced by every single source game.
Yeah.
You know, it worked. It felt fitting. I wasn't like implying that the source SDK was relevant or anything. It was sort of just imagery that happened to line up because it happened at the exact perfect time.
He is just meant to be a direct mirror image of the spy, right? Because he's wearing the gibbous.
If we're going back to the metaphor of it, where, like, if you look at the cutscene as just me complaining about myself for 10 minutes, and that, like, perception of it, he is the spy, because realistically, that's just me looking inward.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I was looking at it, so the malicious entity saying all these horrible things about someone, that's just him. Like, he's looking inward. He is looking at his own flaws and getting worked up over them. Also, he's wearing the gibbous because the gibbous is also implied to be kind of a MacGuffin, like the intelligence.
100%.
So it's sort of like him from the past in his head coming back to just make fun of what he's become. I haven't really thought about it this much. Him having the gibbous was deliberate because the gibbous is kind of important.
Yeah.
As like a MacGuffin in all the cutscenes.
No, definitely. Like, it's in every interaction with him and the engineer as well. I know, it's so cool because, not to go back to it, but just to clarify, when I was like, oh, I was scared to ask this stuff, it's because I was really afraid that by theorizing stuff about it being a reflection of yourself or as a way for yourself to vent, I was scared that I was just like, my brain was somehow tricking me into thinking that just because I knew it would make a better video, and I didn't want to make you, like, I wanted to interview on a human to human level talking about like what inspired the game and everything, and I was afraid that it would come across like I was trying to make you part of this insane fucking world where you're like trapped in the game or whatever. But yeah, no, it's cool to have it affirmed that it was just like you expressing yourself and in a way representing part of yourself or part of the emotions you were feeling.
Yeah, a lot of my art is like pretty deeply personal. No matter what I make, I try to put a lot of myself in it, for better or worse.
I mean, I think it's definitely effective. I was really taken aback by the cutscene, even though the first time I watched it, I had no idea what was going on. I could pick up enough that I could see the sentimentality and understand its some basic meaning, and I don't know, that was beyond effective for me. Is there anything you wanted to say about the spy and the engineer becoming friends again in that following cutscene? Because to me, it was almost confusing whether or not Spy refuses the offer or takes it, because the Hubris says, like, you could have everything you ever wanted, and that could include him getting Engineer back as a friend. And it's a bit ambiguous whether or not Spy takes the offer, so I was like, oh, maybe he did take the offer, and that's why Engineer becomes friends with him again.
Well, shit, I've literally never had anyone else feel that way. I'm kind of surprised you're the first person to have that interpretation of the ending.
Okay.
When I was like making the cutscene, I wanted to make it obvious that he shot it. In fact, I wanted the transition from the cutscene with the intelligence to the machinima to be a gunshot. I guess I'm glad I didn't, because it's leading to someone else interpreting it a different way. Because I mean, shit, that's like a cool way to look at it. Like maybe he did take it, and that's why it ends on a nostalgic GMOD machinima, because Mr. Hubris is just the spy wearing the gibbous, an item very close to the spy in his past. Maybe he took it just to go back to that, like, fucking lost childhood he had, where he has the engineer and everything's fucking wacky and silly.
Oh, that's so true. Oh yeah, I didn't think about it on that level either. Because at first I was like, oh, he definitely didn't take it, but then after rewatching it, I think I got it in my head.
Yeah, I will say, I wrote it implying that the spy shot the intelligence, which is why everything is back to normal.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I wanted it to end off. I wanted it to end off with the spy and engineer finally being together again, and he's friggin' happy, and it ends like the SpongeBob movie where he does a big jump and freezes in the air. You know, like, you came this far, and everything's happy now. You got your happy ending.
Yeah.
I mean, shit, it's a fun way to look at it, if you want it to be really bleak. Since I mentioned the intelligence being a MacGuffin implied to be something close to both of them, I do know the original idea for the cutscene would have had them opening the intelligence briefcase. Like, you can see it sitting on a table in the spy's house. Originally, I was going to have him open the briefcase. It would have been a flash drive or a CD or something, and on the CD, he would have put it in the computer, and it would have just been a home movie. And the home movie would have been a GMOD machinima to tie into that whole nostalgia thing. I didn't go through with it because I didn't feel like animating it. I was running out of time, but that was the original idea. Like, if I was gonna go with the whole, like, fucking businesses ruining everything angle, if you look at it that way, you could view the intelligence being captured by a big business be something like someone selling out and giving something close to them to a company that doesn't really care about it or the person it was made for, and engineer goes back for it because it's something that actually means something to him. But
to clarify, the viewers don't understand, or maybe I'm actually wrong, but could it be that because Spy shoots the intelligence in that final cutscene, that is why he can become friends with Engineer again, because Engineer isn't trapped by the corrupting intelligence anymore from the deal he took because Spy killed it?
If you want to look at it literally, like the intelligence literally corrupting the world, then yeah, him shooting it means every single person that the intelligence had control over would have been freed, so.
In the laboratory, there are some messages written in blood on the walls. Are those just meant to be like scary little artifacts, or were there anything behind the message?
Yeah, that's the only part of the game where I actually started thinking about world building past just like very tiny implications, like, you know, NG building the machines and all that nonsense. But when I got to the lab, I actually wanted to kinda tell him a sort of a story contained in that level, because around then I learned that I could just put sprites around the map without having to create objects for them. And that was when I was introducing Hale, and I wanted Hale to be the sort of the highlight of the entire campaign. Like, he was the final boss, so to speak.
Definitely. He felt like more of a boss almost than the final boss, not in terms of spectacle, but just how scary he is because of how fast he runs. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, I'm so fucking proud of him, and I am so proud. I'm so happy that it seems like every single person who's played the game has, like, similarly freaked out when they got to that part, just because of how stressful it is. Yeah, I wanted to make it a little more than just an empty building with enemies in it. I wanted to kind of imply a short story, just so that way they would give you something to think about while you were exploring. And the idea was that it was just like, Hale was sort of created artificially by the medic as an experiment to make, like, the best monster, like, the strongest, something that could properly defend the intelligence. But it was too strong, and it just killed all of the incidental, unimportant medics that were, you know, upkeeping the lab.
Yeah.
And by the time you get there, they're all dead, so it's just Hale. And you messing with the fuses ends up getting the engineer there.
Yeah, okay. Definitely getting to that stage, it does really feel like you're figuring something out in the campaign. That's where there's like the most messaging in terms of like obviously the blood on the wall, and then you see the dead bodies, you're like, oh, an event has already happened here. This is a place of substance, of significance. When you say that the medic created Saxon Hell, maybe you want to go into this later, but in the manual it says that there was like a whole multiple medics acting in basically slave labor to create the Saxon Hell monster.
I wouldn't call it like that. I'd call them more like they were just henchmen. I'm sort of trying to treat the mercs less like they are individuals and more like they're just, you know, video game enemies. And the medics are higher up on the hierarchy, and I wanted to imply that they made the scout and the demo man through some crazy surgery or something. And Hale was their most recent experiment, and he's the most successful. And he ended up killing basically all of the medics, leaving only the one in the cornfield in Big City.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It really does, because as the game gets harder, it does feel like you're climbing up a hierarchy of kind of like how strong those video game characters are, and then also maybe like how much they're tied to the intelligence.
It's like most of them are just mindless monsters that the intelligence just throws at the spy to hope to kill him. Stuff like the heavy or the soldier, they're sort of just like brainless grunts. They're sort of expendable. They just kind of exist as monsters. And then there's like the scout and the demo man, who are a little bit more specialized. Then there's the medic, who's supposed to be the second to best. There's a lot of them, and they're implied to be a lot smarter than the other ones. And then there's the engineer. There's only one engineer, and he's the only one that's supposed to be like story relevant. All the other ones are sort of just enemies. They exist to act as obstacles. The engineer's the only one that's really tied to the story in any way. Other than Hale, I guess, because Hale kind of has a little bit of story relevance too. At least self-contained in the lab level, but...
Yeah, that makes so much sense, because the smaller, like, kind of more gruntish enemies, like you say, it's almost like the intelligence is hurling the easiest thing possible, so it's like an amalgamation of what is basically the least energy to create their little contorted beings. I know it says in the manual too that engineer is seen as almost the intelligence's personal guardian. Does that insinuate that the engineer created the intelligence, or is he just like submissive to it?
I'd have to go back to the tower mode ending. I wanted to imply that the intelligence is something that the engineer had in the past. The endings to the game were kind of written on a whim, and they're kind of designed less like actual stories and more like massive bits of stupid metaphor, kind of like how the Binding of Isaac's endings are.
Yeah.
And that it tells a story, but it's told in the most convoluted way possible, and there's still a lot of like things you would have to either figure out yourself or just make theories about, or just anything, because I didn't even have a real story written down before I made the cutscenes. I just had like a general idea of the kind of story I wanted to tell and what I wanted it to imply, and sort of just went with it for how at the time I felt that a lot of these nostalgic things were being treated, in that they were being hyper marketed, and the intelligence itself was implied to just sort of be something close to the engineer. Like in its place you could imagine it being anything. Like in my head I was imagining it to be like inside the briefcase was just something that the engineer and the spy made together, and I wanted them to open it and there would be something like that, but I didn't really go through with it. Just implied to be something close to the engineer and the spy, some close personal belonging that they're attached to. And either because he sold it out or because it got stolen, or however, some big business now owns it and the engineer doesn't like it, so the engineer goes back to take it back and it goes wrong. And it was supposed to just be some big metaphor for how like over marketing or basically anything could kind of corrupt anything. It sounds kind of gay when I look back at it, because it's like some kind of friggin' internet memes and like internet culture ruins everything. I'm 80 years old. But it was more so just me being frustrated at the sort of mob mentality that a lot of people have towards things, where one person gets big doing something and everyone else just tries to do the exact same thing and stifling their own creativity in favor of just doing the popular thing without having their own spin on it or showing any of their own personal ideas. That was sort of the metaphor for Tower Mode's ending.
Yeah, I definitely remember that. And I think it's so true. I mean, you've even seen it more so in Source and TF2 Horror since that video came out.
Yeah.
I hadn't picked up that it was the engineer had previously had the intelligence, and that's what kind of made him mad, is that he wanted it back, because it makes me think of when an indie developer gets their game. And I know someone, this is what has happened to actually, if someone has their indie game picked up by a bigger developer or publisher, and then they basically just lose the rights to their own creation and lose creative control over it, and they can't even get it back.
I'm glad that you're able to put your own spin on it, because that's exactly what I wanted.
I think that's what makes it so interesting. Just like you say, it's really hard to work out the cutscenes and what's expressed, but that's what makes people be so pulled to it, because they want to decipher it and learn from it, and making theories is part of the fun in this kind of thing. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted you a bit there.
That's all I really wanted with the endings. Even though most of the endings did have like general vibes and a lot of them were kind of personal and venty, I wanted them to just be like weird and freeform enough so that anyone going into them would just leave it knowing, okay, what the hell was that? And then they'd have their own ideas on what it was. And I feel like that's a lot of the fun of it. Like, I can sit down and tell you exactly what I was thinking when I was making that ending. For me, it was because I was being a hipster and I was upset at how indie horror is just the same thing being repeated over and over and over again ad nauseum. And it kind of still is, but I know right now I've sort of grown out of that kind of feeling. I still kind of don't like how samey everything is nowadays, but I do know that I've stopped being so elitist about it ever since. So like right now, if I were to look at that ending, I would probably have a different interpretation of it.
That's so cool. I actually love that so much, because like you say, all the cutscenes are kind of just like an expression of how you're feeling, and like a lot of art is just like that. It doesn't mean just because someone had this feeling once they're going to think that forever. It could just be a passing feeling they're expressing in that moment. And I don't know, it's just so cool that you've like literally just introspected about that, and you're like, oh wait, no, I actually don't fully agree with that fully, or I don't identify with that. Oh, that's just, I know, I really like that.
Funnily enough, Henry actually has a lot of stuff leading up to his inception. The original idea, back when 1.2 was just going to be an add-on to Tower Mode to add 4 more monsters, and it would have just been that. The original idea was going to be to put Melon Man in the game, but then I had the brilliant idea to reference a different stupid Gary's Mod ARG, and now it's a reference to Sniper is Sentry from Gunslinger Pro. And yeah, if you look close at the model, there's little gibs of Sniper in it. You wouldn't notice because the sprites are so small, but yeah.
Is the name Henry also from that?
Nah, Henry's just a cute name. I wanted to give him a comically cute name.
That's exactly what I said when I first saw it as well. Something you might find funny is that in the TF2 comics, there's a guy called John Henry, who is like a steel driver who was in some of the original mercenaries before the TF2 mercenaries, and he dealt with explosives. I knew it was a coincidence. Henry is an old mercenary, so I was like, there's like a 0.1% chance that engineer somehow put John Henry into the Henry monster.
Yeah, that is a coincidence. I've seen the TF2 comics a while back. I've yet to read the new one, so I know that the TFC mercenaries appear in it, but I didn't know any of their names, so it's not intentional.
Yeah, I didn't think so, but it's interesting. Okay, one thing I find my favorite character basically from the new update was the Demo Man imp things, the little miniature Demo Man. So yeah, what made you want to have, like, first of all, those characters that actually help you, but then they're on the blue team. That's like the only enemy on the blue team, right?
Yeah, that's a deliberate choice. I was sort of just trying to think of different objectives for Tower Mode, and it kind of just came to me on a whim. I thought it'd be funny to have little demo men carrying batteries around. Them being blue is a deliberate choice because every single enemy in the game, even all the dumb OCs, they're on the warmer scale of the color spectrum, while the spy is blue. So the demo men that don't hurt you are going to be blue too, so they're color-coded.
The next monster is the Wicker Man. Had you like recently seen the Wicker Man film or something, or?
No. He's also based on a different dumb horror video that I like. He's based on a thing that appears for a split second in a deleted Classic GM Videos bit. I think Classic GM Videos is the one I'm talking about. It's the one with like the the pond on Construct that goes on forever, and like,
oh yeah,
I already referenced it sort of through the ARG man, just kind of being that black figure that appears in the background of all those videos, but I wanted to reference it a little bit more directly, and even though that video has been deleted, and I'd imagine whoever makes those videos isn't proud of it anymore, like, I'd imagine it was deleted for a reason. I just like the video. It feels like something I would have seen in a nightmare I had as a kid, so it felt perfect.
The different interloper elements of the actual game of Capture the Intelligence just leveled up so much with not only the inclusion of Umbrella Man, but obviously there's the new character that appears in Tower Mode with a random encounter that is literally described as an interloper when the code menu pops up. And this is the character that I'm most interested to hear about, because to me at least it looks extremely similar to either your profile picture, because obviously it's the...
You are going to be so disappointed.
I mean, I think I wrote in the script, I was like, I can't get my hopes up for anything, because the chances are you're just going to be like, oh, yeah, this was just, I thought it was cool in the moment, and stuff like that. But yeah, I thought it looked like, almost like your profile picture, so I was like, oh my god, is this a self-insert? But I also thought it looked a bit like Newbie from the arcade machine and your other stuff, so I'm very intrigued to hear about it, even if it's not anything big, I just want to know everything.
Well, first I wanted to say that CTI wasn't really meant to be anything really related to Interloper. I just wanted to reference it in the game because it was something I liked. But the little guy you can find in Tower Mode sometimes, that is not a self-insert, but it is just one of my OCs crammed into the game as an Easter egg. Like, it's not supposed to mean anything. It's literally just one of my old characters. I wouldn't call him a Sona, but it's just one of my old characters just kind of crammed into the game as an Easter egg. I put him in there because I wanted to have something that could happen in Tower Mode that no one would really expect, just to freak people out, and I made it that character because I felt like it'd be fitting.
Yeah, I did. I actually noted down that it's the most scared I was of any monster in the game.
Yeah, I know on the TV Trope article, it like erroneously calls that guy a thing from Interloper, which I find funny because I made that character 4 years ago before Interloper even started.
I don't think they can read, because on the script that pops up after the jump scare, when it's all the coding language about, what is it, like rebooting the game or resetting it, like it says that the character is an interloper, insinuating that it can move between games or something, not that it's from Interloper, right?
Yeah, that was the implication, yeah. The character's not from anything, he's just an OC I made for fun. Yeah. And the idea is that he's just like a ghost or a thing that can move between different visual formats, and I wanted him to show up in CTI because realistically he could. Like, that's his whole shtick. Yeah. And I do know if I make any other games, I might put him in there as well as an Easter egg. Like, I know I want to do that dumb horror game with my OCs, like the Space Pizza horror game. Yeah. I wanted him to show up in there too, but as a more important enemy in one of the stages. I don't know if that game's ever going to happen. It is something I'd like to do, but that I've not even started my comic yet, so I want to start my comic first before I start making fucking games about it, but at some point I want to make a horror game about it, and if I do, I know that one of the concepts I had for a stage would have been an arcade, and he would have been the bad guy that shows up, and he would just be able to crawl through the different arcade cabinets to teleport around. His name's Analog.
That'd be really cool. I'd love to see a game with like 100% OCs.
When he touches you and there's the jump scare screen, it's the same animation every time. But the little flickering effect when he teleports around is just a random frame from that little animation.
Okay, you might find this funny then. When I was playing, the second time I encountered him, my game crashed as he called me. And I was like, is this part of the game?
Oh my god.
Or was that the best coincidence ever?
People on Game Jolt have noticed that too. It's a bug that I never bothered fixing. It used to not be a problem because when I made him, Tower Mode still only had the fuses. So there was only ever 4 fuses, and Analog's just built off of the Heavy's AI, so he has the ambushing behavior where if you've capped enough, he'll just wait around at the door or whatever. Yeah. But now that there's different objectives, which can have only 2 things you have to do, sometimes he'll just crash the game.
That's so perfect. Oh my god.
And if I ever do update the game again to bug fix it, I'm going to fix that because as funny as it is, I don't really want people to go to floor 49 and then have their game crash because of my dumb fucking OC crashing it. Yeah, I didn't want it to be like a direct self-insert. I don't want to be like, hey, look, it's me, Nixless, creator of the video game. That's like some fucking Pokemon ROM hack shit. I don't want to do that. It's just one of my characters.
I love that.
I can't blame you for thinking it was a self-insert, though, because the little character I have as my profile picture on Game Jolt and whatnot does look similar. It's an old Sona of mine.
Oh, that's so funny. In the first stage, there's obviously the Interloper Umbrella Man integration with also that other monster that's with him, but I'm not 100% up to date with the Interloper, so I don't know if that's a different Interloper enemy, but that like almost shadow bulldog thing. In the last interview, you hadn't seen Interloper yet, and then you messaged me a few weeks or months after the interview being like, oh, I did watch it and I really liked it. So yeah, I was just wondering what you thought about that series. It must have left some kind of impression because you obviously wanted to integrate it, but...
I remember at the time of the first interview when you mentioned Interloper, I thought you were talking about a different thing.
Yeah.
A little bit after I decided to watch it because I was bored, and yeah, I ended up really freaking loving it. At this point, it's probably one of my favorite stories of its genre. Compare it to things similar to it, it's the best. Before I'd seen it, I'd grown really tired of the state of how creepypastas are. We sort of live in a time where most creepypastas, you know, they've run their course. Most people don't even bother making new stories. They just find an old story and they remake it 18 bajillion different times and change like one different thing about it and then act like that's something groundbreaking. It's just one person made classic GM videos and then everyone wanted to be classic GM videos, and then Gunslinger Pro happened, and then all of a sudden 18 bajillion different people all of a sudden had the same exact idea and told the exact same story with very little changes. I was going into Interloper expecting the worst. I was expecting to just go into it and it would just be like fucking footage of Gary's mod, and then a ragdoll would pop up and like stand up, and then it would turn into Saw, but even more corny. Yeah, I friggin' watched it expecting the worst, and then I had my fucking mind blown because it's the exact kind of thing I love in a creepypasta, done expertly. It's fucking amazing. It's got all those fucking elements of old internet creepypastas and like shit like SCP, all the exploration aspects of it, just exploring this shit that we explicitly know next to nothing about, as it only ever explains enough to make you ask more questions.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking good. It's just so good.
It does feel flawless. I can't believe I haven't finished it. I 100% agree.
Like, it was so fucking inspirational to me. It filled me with so much optimism just seeing such a good story happen during such a drought in this genre. And I really just wanted to pay respects to it because it was a really good series, and I wanted to reference it because it's something I really like.
What was the main thing on your mind when you were thinking about level design and game development and theory for what you wanted to do that was refreshing? Because there's so many new elements and especially the factory with the breakable walls and the rockets being fired and the tin cans, just all these new elements.
When I first wanted to do hard mode, I was kind of doing it to be a hard mode. Like, it was just going to be the same game, except things from tower mode would just be kind of sprinkled in an attempt to make it harder. And you can see that in Turbine, since it's just the first bit of Turbine with the crates moved and soldier spawns in late, but kind of just spur of the moment decided I wanted it to be a B-side, kind of like I was making a sequel without actually having to start over, and that's kind of how I treated it.
I'm so glad you made that choice. It does just feel like a completely new campaign, for sure.
If I had went with that initial idea, if it was just going to be the normal campaign but slightly harder, it would have been so shit.
Adding the tower modes into their own environments, I thought that was the coolest thing ever, because especially with the interview we did, it was so cool to hear about like the bunch of new monsters you just encounter in tower mode. They felt iconic to me. I was like, it would be so cool to see them in their own story, and then seeing that in the hard mode, I think I made a note of it in the script. Like, I just want to appreciate it so much because it just adds so much more atmosphere to those characters. So when you do encounter them in tower mode, you're like, oh, I know where this is from.
It felt a little anticlimactic for them to just be random parts of a randomly generated side mode. Plus, by nature of tower mode just kind of being randomly generated, a lot of the draw of hard mode would just be seeing those monsters at their hypothetical peak, so to speak. So like, I think the only part of hard mode that I didn't really hone in on was this one gimmick with Henry being able to make the engineer teleport around.
Oh.
I don't even know if anyone knows this, but if you get hit with one of Henry's rockets, it'll make the engineer teleport.
Oh, what? I did not know that. I did not realize.
It never happens in hard mode because engineer is not in that level.
Yeah.
You have to have engineer and Henry appear on the same floor in tower mode and then get hit by one of Henry's rockets to even know it happened.
Yeah. That's such a rare occurrence. I wonder if it happened to anyone and they just started freaking out because they didn't know what was going on. Did you find that doing those new levels and having the tower mode enemies in a campaign kind of added onto the world building and created a new story in your head just through the process? Or was it, again, just a cool creative way to have an environment for them and just get creative with it on, like, off the dome, basically?
I'd say the latter. I didn't really start thinking about trying to do much world building until I got to the laboratory. Most of my thought process was just trying to hone in more on what I initially wanted to do with Capture the Intelligence. I remember saying for the initial draft of the bridge stage, which I literally thought up on the spot when I was going for a walk, was having the snipers just kind of out in like the abyss surrounding the bridge, and you would only ever see them by the laser sights of their rifles homing in on you if you stayed outdoors. And I tried to like retool that a little bit in Big City by showing them on top of the buildings, and you know, they're only inside the buildings. It's more evident on the factory because the factory is literally just the initial draft of the cornfield stage, but actually done well.
Oh, really? So that is what you kind of had planned initially?
Yeah, that's what I wanted the cornfield to look like. I wanted it to be an old factory with the scout walking around and he wouldn't be able to go indoors, and him summoning the medic would just be so he could flush you out of the buildings.
Yeah, I do remember you saying that. Oh, that didn't click for me when I played through it. The boss fight. I'm so glad you said Binding of Isaac, because obviously that was the first thing my brain jumped to when you see that kind of boss. But yeah, if you could just talk about your inspirations for it and your process for making it, and you know, the fact the spy actually gets his first weapon at that moment.
I know I wanted to end it on some sort of climactic boss fight. That being said, the decision to make it an actual traditional boss fight in the form of a bullet hell was something I was debating whether or not I should do. Like, I knew in my head I wanted it to be some climactic confrontation with the engineer, and then through some method the engineer gets defeated and then you have to defeat the intelligence. Like, that was always the idea, and I always specifically wanted to do that because in the corner with like the mission briefing in the corner, I specifically wanted to do that so that way the final mission briefing would just say capture the intelligence, sort of as a bookend. I first wanted it to be on like this platform just kind of floating in the middle of nowhere, and the engineer would spawn in, and on each corner of the map there would be admin cannons from War of the Servers, and they would just function like the missile turrets from the factory stage, and the boss would just involve you having to use the turrets to attack the engineer. I didn't go through with it, so I sort of went with a bit of both. It starts with that scripted chase, and then it gets into a fight. And the idea to give the spy his gun, I wanted it to really feel like a climax. Like, a bunch of crazy shit is happening. The spy's got a gun now, what the hell is happening? And I was worried about that bit because I've had a lot of people talk about how they don't like how the mouse is used in the game, and I've tried to fix that where I can, like letting you use the E button to progress menus and stuff. But at the same time, I just really wanted it to just abruptly change genres just to emphasize how climactic it was. Like, I really wanted it to just feel like an ending.
Such a big dynamic is added that it makes it feel more important. I mean, you're quite literally using a different limb to play the game. It feels novel and exciting. Yeah, I think you pulled that off for sure.
It's like people are used to just the door opening when everything is done. I wanted to really freak people out. Like, you go to the last fuse, which is inconspicuously at the top of the map, and then the lights turn off and it's quiet, and then you try to go back the way you came, and oh no, you can't.
Yeah.
And then through the wall, you see the vent precariously placed, like, right in your way. I really wanted to freak people out with that stage. Yeah, okay, a little history lesson. 5 or 4 years ago, I was playing around in Game Maker Studio 1, as you do, and I wanted to make a stupid mascot horror game. I I just wanted to lampoon on the trend because I thought it'd be funny. And the idea was to make a game called Edhead's Funhouse, which would have been a top-down RPG-style horror game where you walk around, collect shit to open the door to the elevator, and then you go down a floor. And each floor has different monsters in it, and it progressively gets more and more fucked up. And when I first made the game, the protagonist was just some nondescript kid with a propeller hat. But as the game went on, I came up with the idea for Newbie, who would have been a security guard who works there, going deeper and deeper into the facility. And yeah, that was like the creation of that character. Edhead's Funhouse didn't go anywhere. Not because I lost interest, but because the computer I made the game on, the hard drive broke, so the game is gone. So I still have the files. Yeah, in fact, CTI is kind of built off of the backbones of Edhead. I was trying to figure out how to use Game Maker Studio 2 because CTI was my first big project made in it, and you know, CTI was just going to be a very small project. I just made it for a friend to freak him out for a little bit, and it kind of just got greater and greater in scope as I kept making it. But because it was just going to be so short, I didn't really want to relearn how to do pathfinding, so I just dug through what little files I had remaining of Edheads, took the enemy pathfinding, and slapped it in CTI. So in a sense, CTI is just Edhead with a TF2 skin on it.
That's so cool. It managed to have rebirth in some form.
Yeah. Newbie and the Haunted House, it was never going to be its own game, but I wanted to at least reference Edhead in the game properly somehow. And since I wanted there to be an Easter egg in the factory because, you know, you had that little secret room, I wanted to put something cool in there, and I didn't want to just put... I was just going to put, like, pictures of all the YouTubers that played the game there, and I didn't... Yeah. It felt kind of forced, so I wanted it to be something else, so I put the Easter egg stage there, and I came up with the idea for Newbie in the Haunted House. I brought back Newbie, I put him in a haunted house, and that was that.
It's so cool that everyone got to see your original vision for it being its own game and not like it's the TF2 version. What was the inspiration for the monster in that game? And also, is there a strategy to avoid him? Because he moves so quickly. Is it like a random movement or
the monster for Newbie and the Haunted House wasn't from Edhead. It was something I'd made specifically for Newbie and the Haunted House. She's the only real OC in the game, and she's also the token female. Yeah, I just wanted to make a monster for it, and I just kind of gravitated towards making her look like a rat, because I like rats.
In that secret room where the arcade machine is, there's some graffiti of what looks like... I couldn't make out which one of your OCs it was, if it's the same one that the analog is.
That's a different one. It's my old Sona. I used to use it, but I don't use them anymore.
Okay, and was that just like a little doodle to put in the game as an Easter egg too?
Yeah. It was just me saying thank you for playing the game. The burger is just a reference to an old Soundsmith video that I liked.
What?
I really like Soundsmith, and he used to play GMOD all the time.
Yeah.
And it's just a reference to one of those old GMOD videos he did. I can get the video in a bit.
Yeah, sure.
Well, Seymour, I made it, despite your directions.
Ah, Superintendent Chalmers, welcome. I hope you're ready for your doom.
I knew it! I knew it!
As for the other secrets, I think everyone's found everything by now. I think the only secret in the game that not many people know about isn't even really a secret. It's just something I forgot to take out. There's a secret SpongeBob in the game.
What?
When I was like sort of mid-development with the game, April Fool's came around, and I wanted to do something stupid while also technically telling the truth.
Yeah.
So I made this dumb video, and I captioned it, "Secret, capture the intelligence, alt campaign revealed," or something like that. And then for the video, I just took like the heavy and I put a SpongeBob gif over it, and I changed it so his footstep sounds are SpongeBob, and then when he catches you, it's just that one bit of SpongeBob crying and then running away.
And so I think
the funniest fucking thing is, yeah, he's still in there. I forgot to take him out, but the funniest fucking thing, I think I retweeted it because I thought it was funny, but someone found it. Someone like data mined the fucking game, found the SpongeBob, and they put the SpongeBob in Turbine, and they were like, CTI 1.2 is crazy, guys, and it's just the SpongeBob.
That's so funny. I think I have a vague memory of seeing something like that. I don't know if it was from your like joke video or that guy's tweet, but
there's just a fucking secret SpongeBob in the game for those who wish to see it.
So I've got some closing questions if you'd want to answer them from like a personal level, just things I thought you might want to say, things that the fans might want to know. I mean, I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this personally, but what is next for CTI? Is it fully over?
Yeah. 1.2 is meant to be the ending. It's the canon end, and I don't really plan on doing anything else with it for like the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
It's not the end of me doing horror stuff. Like don't get that wrong. I still really like doing horror stuff. It's just that if I do anything else horror related, it probably won't be CTI related. It'll be something else. But
I mean, I'm sure people are going to be eager to see what your next horror thing is. But yeah, so fair that yeah. But I mean, yeah, it seemed pretty clear to me that was the final hurrah for CTI. What's next for your own projects? Like if it's games or comics or mods?
Right now, I'm making a bunch of Rivals of Aether mods for fun. It's a bit of a it's very different from fucking dopey GMOD games, but like if there's any overlap between those two groups, I make Rivals of Aether mods. But in the future, though, that's a bit more exciting to talk about because I do have a lot of plans for the future. I really want to start my first comic soon, like my first real comic. I've been working on a pilot for it, and I hope to drop it soon. I don't really have much finalized to show off. It's mostly just concept art and whatnot, but sometime this year, I want to drop the pilot, and I think it'll be cool. I do know the next game I want to make is going to be a horror game as well. I don't know what it's going to be. I have a bunch of different ideas sitting around. It's probably going to be another horror game.
I can't wait. Oh my god. If you have any messages to the TF2 community or the source horror community or the horror community or anything, creepypasta people, anything like that, and then maybe this is a bit annoying or cringy for you to do, but the whole point of this series is to try and show people how you can create stuff when you're inspired by other things and just basically try and get people to start creating their own passion projects. So if you have any tips for people who are inspired by Capture the Intelligence and what you've done, if you have any tips for them and anything you've learned along the way that you wish you did know when you started out.
Okay, well, if I'm going to be talking directly to different player bases, then let's address the TF2 community. Thank you for being there for me to get stupid kills with the Ambassador in casual servers and then laugh like a hyena in VC. And also thanks for being there for one of my favorite games ever. I don't know, I can't really think of anything else. I guess we'll move on to the whole like talking to new and upcoming creators bit. That I have a lot I actually want to talk about. I remember last time I was asked something similar, and at the time, I don't know, I will add the last time we interviewed, I was going through a lot mentally, so I was not all there in my head. I was very bitter and cynical, and I still am. Like, I'll always be a massive hipster when it comes to things. I hate doing what's popular, and that's never gonna change, but I'm not as elitist as I was. Like, I remember in that first interview, I talked about how, like, creepypastas got, like, taken in by big businesses, and now they suck. But now that I'm thinking more rationally, it's a lot deeper than that, and trying to pin it on certain people or trying to like demonize people for doing things that are derivative of each other is, while I feel like it's valid to find that sort of thing uninspiring and kind of lazy, trying to oust certain people out for doing it is very destructive, especially since a lot of people doing that are just doing it because it's their first attempt at a creative endeavor. 100%. So naturally they're going to just do something they know will work. That being said, I still just really wish people would like do something fucking original. And even then, like, saying people need to be more original is like just a dead horse. Everyone says it and everyone just says it without knowing what that even means. Like, don't feel like it's a result of people being lazy or anything like that. I just feel like this is kind of a result of how the internet is. Like, the internet is extremely volatile with how it is, and there's a lot of mob mentality around it. So like, if something big gets big, then it's not going to be like how it was in 2012, where you just have a small group of loner teenagers who really like Jeff the Killer or something like that. Like, nowadays, if something gets big, you're seeing it at fucking Walmart. Like, I go to fucking Walmart and I see Digital Circus shit. Like, it is a different climate. So naturally, with this sort of mob mentality, it's way harder to really feel like you can do anything original. Like, you can see it now. Like, there are a lot of people trying to start their own creative endeavors in horror, like be it some dumb analog horror video or like a creepypasta or like, I don't know, an EXE game or something, and they'll try something different, they'll try something, but by virtue of it being their first project, it'll be bad and they'll get bullied for it. Like they'll just kind of get shit on for it, and it's just kind of sad to see. The way mob mentality is, a lot of people will see people try something different and not get anywhere with it, and naturally they're going to feel like it would be wasted effort. I mean, I disagree with this, but like it makes sense. If you want to make something, then naturally you're going to want to have people to share it with.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Why waste the time making something if no one is going to care about it? Like, I will say that mindset's really destructive, and if you feel that way, then you should probably like work on like your self-esteem a little bit, because the act of creating is meant to be fulfilling by itself without having to appeal to certain demographics or like just doing it for attention.
Exactly.
Like, make what you want to make, someone will like it, but I don't know, I'm kind of getting sidetracked. What I'm trying to say is, if you're gonna like get into making horror or really anything, I feel like the best advice I can give is to just put yourself in it. Like, make it something personal, because that's the one thing I love to see in something, and it's a lot of things I really like, especially in horror, are things that I can look at and then see myself in, like, and not in like the sense where it's like, oh, this is literally me. I mean, like, I can see myself as the creator. Like, I can see the creator sitting down and thinking about things that personally frightened them, or like trauma they have, or just, you know, weird, unexplainable things that they've dealt with as a kid, and writing from that, especially since that's a lot of how I make things. Like, a lot of things I make come from my dreams, or certain experiences I have, or just drawing from who I am as a person. Like, when I see something like Interloper, it doesn't feel like some dude sat down and went like, okay, what's the way I can make the next big Source ARG? I see some dude who's autistic about Source Engine sitting down and like thinking about all the things he knows about like Hammer Editor and like this, and how Source functions, probably looking back at a bunch of like theories he had come up with as a kid, or different like urban legends that he may have heard when he was first getting into these things, and using that as a like a jumping off point to make something personal to him. Like, you can just see how personal it must be to the person who's making it. Like, what's his name, Anamade? You can see a lot of them in that. Like, it would have been nowhere near as good if it was just some schmuck who only made it because he knew it would be something popular. Like, it's only as good as it is because the person making it loves Source Engine and wanted to make a story based on his encyclopedic knowledge and love for Source Engine. Something like that can only happen because it's something he's very, very personally attached to. And I feel the same way about a lot of different things I like. I don't know, I'm sorry, I'm not like the best at wording these sorts of things. I'm like seeing what I want to say in my head, and then it's coming out wrong, but I feel like my point's getting across.
No, definitely.
I'm just like,
no.
Yeah.
100%. Everything you said, I completely agree with. I think that is exactly why people are drawn to your work as well. For those exact reasons that you say you kind of look out for in other media that really seem to connect, that is exactly what, at least I see in a lot of your work, and what makes it so interesting. It's one thing to be inspired by your own experiences, but when you're even putting yourself in a vulnerable position to try and make the content of something else better, it is something very special, and I think that's a perfect note to probably end the video on. I think that's going to connect to so many people watching this who are seeing creations like yours, are inspired by lots of things themselves, and they're just looking for advice.
If you're friggin' hearing this and like you're someone who wants to get into doing creative work, be it like video editing, game dev, just drawing or writing or anything, say you've been like inspired by some horror video you saw on the internet and it's something that resonated with you, so you want to make something inspired by it. Even though I'm a hipster, inspiration is natural. Like, it's natural to be inspired by things you like. Of course, something that you make that's inspired by something else is going to have those similarities. Like, that's the creative process. It just happens.
You can't avoid it.
So many things I make are so like directly influenced by different artists that I like, or different stories that I've read and like spoke to me personally. Like, that's just kind of how it goes. It's only natural to make something derivative of things that inspire you. Like that just happens. But I'm all for it. But at the same time, I feel like it's just really important to make sure that you're putting a lot of yourself in your own work. Like, devil's advocate, let's just say you're making like a complete ripoff of something. Like, no shame in doing it, everyone's done it. Like,
yeah.
Like, even I've done it. So
yeah,
like,
same, 100%.
Like, even in that like fringe scenario where you're just making something because you really like something and you want to do it your way. I feel like it's really important to just make sure you're putting yourself or your own experiences in your work. And it doesn't have to be literal, like you don't have to like friggin' literally write about yourself. I just mean like using your own personal experiences, your own personal feelings, just letting that influence the way you make things. Because I genuinely feel like that's the most important thing in making your work stand out. Like just being able to see the creator just drawing from themselves and telling their story, even if it's something really derivative. It's what ends up making me want to stick with something, because a lot of the times when I see something that I don't really mesh with, it's because in my mind I don't really see the creator making it because they have a story that they want to tell from their heart. It's because it feels more like them doing something for the sake of doing something, be it money or just wanting to do what's popular or whatever. But even if you're making something derivative or something wholly unoriginal, I feel like as long as you're just putting yourself in it somehow, then it's just going to end up being its own thing, and you're going to have a lot of people loving what you make just because of your own personal spin on it. Like, you can make whatever you want to make, and it's okay to take heavy inspiration off of people. And it's even okay, like you can make whatever you want to make, be inspired by whatever you want to be inspired by. But the most important thing for you to do is just put heart into it.
And like, don't let the idea of, oh, I'm just copying, stop you from just starting to create something.
Yeah.
Just start creating something and just do it, and then over time you'll be able to work these things out, these issues you have, but you're never gonna be able to do what you want to do unless you actually do it, unless you actually just start.
Really do hope that more people get into these sorts of things, because I've been dying to see more horror, especially since we're in this drought with just the few same people doing the same few things over and over. I really want to see more people have their own spins on it, and there's so many people out there with so many different ideas. I'm dying to see more new blood in here.
Yeah. So, there we have it. A lot of what myself and others had been guessing was somewhat accurate. Some things were in the ballpark, some spot on, and others completely off base. Nicholas was right in the first episode. Speculation for the fun of it is what the whole point is for a lot of people. It is the fun, the intrigue. But that doesn't take away from the very real sentiments tangled deep within the cryptic or foggy cutscenes, or the huge amount of entertainment and atmosphere that meet when playing this game yourself. And if you have a desire to create a project of your own, I hope you found his messages and this video itself of use in some way. The cutscenes and the interviews spoke for themselves. The cutscenes and the game itself know exactly what they are, and they aren't trying to be anything more. You knew when you clicked on this video and stayed longer than 30 seconds that you just wanted entertainment, even if you had to blatantly suspend your disbelief for that curiosity to stay around. And you did, for one reason or another, stay around for the whole video. But are you curious enough to finally make something of your own? To put yourself in something? I'm not sure I know either.